disappointed in every one of you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I kiss you on the mouth.
No, I'm not cool with that. I'm sorry.
One more time.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I mean, I'm dealing with degenerate animals.
I'm disappointed in every one of you. Disappointed in every one of you.
All right, come on.
Honestly, I can't do it, man.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
Let me tell you why.
Gonna be all right, Nicky. Go ahead, shoot.
You just killed a fucking man.
What are you going to do about it?
You happy because you got nothing? You don't got a thing. You happy because you got nothing? Lobito! Got nothing.
I want to get out. I want to get out of this rat hole. I want to get online. I need
BDA Boxing.
Alright, welcome everybody to another BDA Boxing podcast, broadcasting to you live from the true north. This is your friend Mr. BDA, and I am flying solo for the evening. Very, very special show for you guys tonight, this evening. I hope everybody's doing well. Now before we start with the fun and the entertainment, hopefully we're gonna get former super middleweight contender Librado Andrade on the line. He's gonna be joining us. I'm gonna invite a couple of people, surf the internet a little bit for a while, maybe talk about the Kovalev Yarde fight that was just announced. But before we do that, let's get down to the business first. Don't forget to check out our Instagram page, the BDA Instagram page, and don't forget to check out the BDA Twitter page as well. That's where Bucho keeps everybody up to date with his news and the memes and everything related to boxing. Alright? So don't forget to check that one out. I want to give a shout out to everybody that's in the chat room right now joining us. Apology Man, Bay Area Boxing, Jason Bourne, Nesmatic, Triple J, Virtuoso, Revolucion, Endgame, and many more to come, I am sure. Like I said, Anthony Yarde and Sergey Kovalev, that's going to be taking place. You know what? Hold on a second. Gotta invite a couple of people first. And by the way, I'm trying to get Stu on the show right now, but I don't have Skype. And that's the only way you can join him as far as I know. So Stu, if you're listening, try to contact us through Hangouts or send us some way to send you the link. Because right now I don't have Skype. I can't log in with the BDA account, so I can't send you the invite. So try to get in contact with Butch or something or somebody else, and they'll get you the link. But I don't have the ability to contact you through Skype. All right, so if you can do that, that would be fantastic. All right, so we're gonna get Librado Andrade in a couple of minutes. I don't know exactly when, but he will be here. I don't know if you guys remember Librado Andrade, but he had a bunch of memorable moments in the ring, and it was actually a pretty short career, if you ask me. I mean, I don't remember him being around for about 15 years or something like that. By the way, Virtuoso, shout out to Virtuoso, says, who's fighting tonight? That's a good question. Well, we just had apparently last night Rob Brandt and Ryota Murata for the rematch, and spoilers for everybody, but Murata got his revenge and knocked out Robert Brandt. It seems like Murata always does better in rematches. Remember against Endam, he didn't look all that great. And then again, you know, in the rematch, he ended up knocking him out cold. Well, okay, I don't know if he was out cold, but he knocked him out. And so, hold on a second. I'm getting some correspondence here. All right, so we got... I'm getting some emails here for contact information. All right, so just real quick. Oh, you know what? Sorry. I'm going to send one invite, another invite here. All right. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh, yes. Oh, Murata ended up showing up, and it turns out he's better than expected in rematches. And a lot of people were making fun of him after he lost to Brandt, especially the people that don't really like Gennady Golovkin. They somehow connect, because remember Golovkin at some point was supposed to fight Murata, or there was interest in that fight, and then when Murata lost, people were saying, ha 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 ha, Gennady Golovkin went to fight that bum. Because, you know, for casual boxing fans, everybody's a bum. There's no middle ground. It's either this guy's a bum or this guy's the best ever. Ever. There's no in between with some people. So Ryota Murata gets his revenge. Like I said, I'm going to just put up the news real quick. When he fought Endam the first fight, he lost the split decision. I thought he won that fight. See, my memory is starting to go away with boxing a little bit. Then he knocked out Endam, stopped him in the rematch. Rob Brandt, he lost. He got outworked and outboxed in that fight. And then in this rematch, he ended up winning by knockout. So who knows? The future looks bright for him. The fight that he keeps knocking out or stopping guys that beaten in the first fight. And so he's a big puncher. He's a legit puncher. 15 wins, 12 knockouts. Hopefully he gets a fight against Canelo or Golovkin or Jacobs. I don't think he beats those guys, but just the fact that he's a puncher might make things interesting. Very interesting. So that was what happened last night. I didn't see the Kenshiro fight. I didn't even know if he won. As far as British fights today, we had... Hey, by the way, did Amir Khan... I haven't even keeping up with boxing. Did Amir Khan fight last night? In Arabia? That's what I call it. All that Middle East thing, I call it Arabia. So tonight we had Daniel Dubois and Joey Joyce. They fought separately. They didn't fight each other. And on the zone, we're going to have Ray Vargas versus Tomoki Kameda. That's going to be a good fight, ladies and gentlemen. Might not be the biggest names out there. You might not like little guys fighting each other. But let me tell you, this is going to be a good fight. And in the undercard, Diego De La Hoya takes on Ronnie Rios. Ronnie Rios is a tough fighter. Don't let his loss against Ray Vargas fool you. He's a tough fighter. And on Fox Sports, PBC, Jamal James takes on Antonio DeMarco. And Robert Helenius takes on Gerald Washington. You know, both guys are never going to be heavyweight champions of the world, but they are big dudes and they are going to be trading, so that should be a pretty interesting fight right there. So that's what we got tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Virtuoso says, dear God. What, you don't like that? You don't like Robert Helenius? What's the matter with you? Alright, Gonzalo says, we can contact Andrade anytime we want. Alright, fantastic. Thank you, Gonzalo. And by the way, Gonzalo, I sent you the link, so feel free to drop in whenever you want. Gonzalo. Are you there, Gonzalo?
Yes.
Alright, good to have you on board. And thank you for brokering this deal with Librado Andrade. I'm not sure. Should we just get him right away here, or do we talk a little boxing? Because you said he's ready, right?
It's up to you.
Well, if he's ready, I mean, let's get him in here right now. I don't want to keep him waiting.
Yes.
So I send him the invite, or you send it.
I sent you the email, so if you can go ahead and send it to him.
All right, fantastic. But just while I do that, did you see any of the fights from last night or today, the heavyweights?
No, I'm just waking up here in the Philippines.
Jeez.
But I was listening to some of the commentary live. I think, what is it? Joyce was getting tagged up. I don't know if he won or lost. But these guys from the Ringside Reporter were commentating live because I couldn't see the fight on whatever network it was playing.
Okay, well,
out of the loop. But yeah.
It says Joy, according to Boxing Scene, Joyce forced to go the distance, decisions, Brian Jennings, and Dubois. I'm looking for the results for the Dubois fight, but I don't see him.
Hello? You guys see me?
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I just get a...
I think that's Librado.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, Librado, we can see you. Can you just talk to see how you sound?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, perfect. Yep. I can
All
hear
right,
you
fantastic. Clear. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got Librado Andrade on the line, former super middleweight contender. Gave us a lot of memorable moments. Thank you for being on, Librado. Really, you provided...
Thank you for the invite.
Oh, well, thank you for coming in, man. The amount of... I was looking at your career, BoxRec. I forgot you started out in 1999.
Yeah.
That was your first fight.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Well, it seems that way. And by the way, I'm BDA, and we got Gonzalo here also, who was able to be the liaison between you and this show. So thank you for being on again. Well, listen, we got a lot of questions. Well, yeah, we got a lot of questions, and hopefully people in the chat room too will ask some questions while you want, if you want. And Gonzalo, you too, if you want, just jump in whenever you want.
Sure.
All right, fantastic. All right, Librado, first of all, you started out in 1999, but you were born in Mexico, right?
Yes, and we came to the United States in 1989.
Oh. And so, but when how old were you when you came to the United States?
I was 10 years old. In the summer of 1989, I was 10 years old. I turned 11 years old here in United States. We moved to Anaheim, California. It's called La Habra, the city, but it's really close to Anaheim.
So that's the thing. Were you already boxing in Mexico?
No, not at all. No, nothing.
Because I was going to ask, because you have that classic, and I will get into that, because with the whole Mexican style thing, you know, everybody, now it's become a trend to call it Mexican style, but you do fight like that stereotypical Mexican fighter. Come forward, hands up, picking shots off with your gloves, and if you have to eat one to get one, you're not afraid of that. Right. And that body work too, by the way. Anybody that watches this show knows that I'm a fan of body work. If you go to the body, I'm a fan of yours, and you just went to the body with both hands, not just the left hook, right uppercut too to the body. That's very impressive right there.
Well, thank you.
So you moved to the United States when you were 10 years old. When did you start? At what point did you start boxing?
As soon as we got in the summer of 1989, we moved to United States. My brothers, my family brought us with my mom. And at the end of the street, there's an abandoned church and a small park. It's called Guadalupe Park. Mm-hmm. And that building that was there used to be the Guadalupe Church, a Lady of Guadalupe in La Habra. And then they built a new one, so they moved everything out, and it was just that building there. Well, it was a boxing club. And the reason why we started going there, because when we came in the summer, there was a foosball and a pool table. And we wanted to learn how to play that. We've never seen something like that in Mexico. I come from a very small town in Mexico, and part in the city of León, Guanajuato, and part of the other part in Jesus del Monte, Guanajuato, where we kind of were born. And they had this table there, so we would go play pool, and while we wait for our turn to play, we would put the gloves on and hit the bag. Dave Martinez, the gentleman that used to run the boxing club, he called me one day. He says, "Hey, come here. Throw me a jab, or throw me this and throw me that." I didn't know what it was, but I just threw it. And he says, "Hey, you throw pretty good. You want to learn how to fight?" And I said, "Yeah, okay. Keep coming tomorrow, okay?" And tomorrow was every day. So for the rest of of that summer I was there. When I started high school, I stopped boxing. So I boxed for about 3 years. I had about 10 amateur fights. I used to fight every other 6 months or something like that. And I would lose all of them. And the reason why I would lose all of them was because I had that style. I would wait for the shot. I would take my time. And in the amateurs, it's just throw, throw, throw. So we would get outpointed all the time. And we would get stopped, actually, all the time. And little by little, we started learning how to be more effective with what we had. And in 1989, we were sparring with Julio Gonzalez, the former light heavyweight world champion. He died already, but we grew up with him as kids. And it was actually, there was 6 of us, and only 3 of us made it, which was my brother, Julio, and me. But there was a whole bunch of us, a whole group, and they were all really good. They could fight. And that's where we kind of started learning how to really master what we had. And every day was tough sparring with him, every single day. So we got the best of it.
He had the same style as you, right? Actually, you had the same style as him. I mean, he was a tall guy, but he would fight on the inside. He didn't want to fight on the outside. He was just left foot, right hooks, uppercuts. That must have been some good sparring to watch.
Yeah, Julio had a lot of good uppercuts, and if you stayed in the inside with him, he was gonna beat you out with uppercuts.
Well, how many? Were you? He was older than you, right? Or were you about the same age?
Yeah, a couple years older. Couple years, yeah, but around the same age.
Remember that fight he had with Julian Letterlow? What was his name? Julian, the guy.
Julian Letterlow.
Yeah, who also passed away, unfortunately. But man, that was a war. If you wanna just see what Gonzalez was all about, watch that fight. It was, boy oh boy, guys getting dropped, coming back up, dropping the other guy. So
Julio was a machine. He just kept coming. Nobody wanted to spar with him. That was why the sparring was so intense, because nobody wanted to spar with him, and he would never take it easy on anybody. And with us, we didn't care. We could take it. So that's where we got our toughness, probably.
Now, when you say you and other people would spar him, you're talking about your brother, right?
Right, me and my brother, and there was others, but they never lasted. They never stuck around.
So your brother is Enrique Ornelas, right?
Right, he's my brother.
That's the thing. How come he has? I've never researched this, but how come he has a different name than you?
All right, because Mexico is very weird. You know, it's the father has to go and he has to give the last name to the kids and sign. Okay, this is my son, and it's called confirmation or something like that. He didn't go for me.
Oh,
but since everyone knows everyone in the town, they said, okay, we'll give Librado the father's last name, but he has to come and fix it later. And they agreed, okay, he'll come and fix it later. He never went. 2 years went by. My other brother was born, and he never went to go fix mine. He never went to go give his signature saying that this is my son. And so when he was born, they wanted to give him the Andrade last name. So the lady that used to fill out the paperwork said, no, he never came for the other one. I don't think he's going to come for this one either. So you know what? He says, when he comes and fixes the other one and signs, he can fix this one. But he never went. So I just stay with my last name without a father. So
right. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. And Enrique too. He was a professional boxer too. I mean, he fought Marco Antonio Rubio, if I remember correctly. I forget on which undercard.
It was a war. Him and Marco, they just fought. Oh my God, it was so hard. Yeah.
And he used to spar Bernard Hopkins. Now, I read something interesting that apparently they wanted you to spar Hopkins for the Jermaine Taylor, one of the Jermaine Taylor fights, I think. And did that ever end up happening, or did you end up not being?
I never. I signed without Heyman when late 2004, 2005, something like that. So when he signed me, I had been out for about a year. For some reason, Golden Boy just kept holding me. They weren't finding any fights. They always blamed it. There was always somebody to blame, of course. So at this time, I said, you know what? I don't care who I was. I didn't care if I was 22 and no. I didn't care if I was ranked on the top 10. I didn't care. I needed to fight to make some money. So it was not happening. So I said, you know what? I just go back to my life. Golden Boy claimed that if we didn't resign with them, they wouldn't get us any fights, and because they had brought us up and they made us a contender, so we needed to resign with him for another 2 years, or something like that. I don't remember. And I didn't care. I didn't care who I was signed to. I just wanted to fight to make money. And at this time, I was 22-0, ranked number 1 on the WBO, top 5 in all of the other organizations. And I just stopped. Out of the blue, I just stopped. I stopped fighting for about a year. Then Al Heyman, he called me one day. He grabbed me. He signed me. He explained to me what was the deal. And then I became the happiest man on earth after I met with him, you know. Right. He did marvelous things in my career. And I went back to fighting. And when I went back to fighting, since Bernard Hopkins was with Golden Boy, they asked me if I wanted to spar. But Jermaine Taylor was without him too. And he says, you know what, Librado, you're not a sparring partner. You're not going to go spar with them. And I agreed. I said, okay, I do what you say, Al. And that was it. But my brother did go. He did go spar with him. He spent some time with him in Big Bear, I think. My brother used to spar everyone. My brother
Danny Green, no? Librado. Danny Green, he used to help him too, no? In Australia?
No, we didn't go to Australia. Actually, Danny Green came to us to La Habra Boxing Club, and we used to spar there.
Holy shit, really?
He used to come all the time, yeah.
Holy.
Mikhail Kessler came to spar with us when he was in a fight. Anthony Mondin. Yeah. So he came to spar with us too there at La Habra.
Man,
I think it's the pressure, no? Sorry, Mr. Reedy. The pressure, right? The pressure fighting. They can't get that anywhere else like that with the good engine and the constant, coming forward.
Yeah. And we had a style that you cannot fall asleep. You cannot take it easy. You can't relax. It was going to be a war from the beginning, you know? Yeah. So
man, you and Danny Green, man. I mean, is there video of that anywhere, or was it no to record during sparring sessions?
No, there was no recording back then.
Fuck.
There was maybe a few pictures here and there somebody would take, but not really of video. Oh, now it's all over social media and stuff like that. But
well, that's the thing, though. That's the thing, because I was interviewing an amateur here in Montreal, Shaquille Finn. He's an upcoming fighter. And I asked him about, who have you sparred and blah, blah, blah. And he was because he's still active. So he's hesitant about talking too much about sparring because, what they say, what goes on in the gym stays in the gym. But some guys like Chris Eubank Jr., he'll post videos of him knocking out sparring partners and all that. It's like, it seems like with the internet now, things are changing, like people are breaking the rules now more and more, and they're using it to promote themselves, really.
Yeah, so it's too much of that. And you know what? When we used to spar, a lot of people used to come to La Habra Boxing Club just to see us spar. It was like a fight. We used to spar really hard. And sometimes they will get the best of me all the time. Everybody used to beat me up. But the good thing about all that was because I just kept coming. So they would beat me up, and I just kept coming. So that was exciting, and that was the nice part about sparring like that.
You know what I bet would have been the best against you? Spar 3 rounds against you, and then get the fuck out of there before you start coming on. Because like you said, in the amateurs, you were losing fights, but that's because it's easy 3 rounds. But what happens after the 4th? What happens after the 5th? When you start getting tired and you keep on coming and keep on digging to the body, that's what separates the boys from the men. And you had that style perfect, really, for the professionals, because you can, you could lose the first 2-3 rounds because you weren't the fastest boxer in the world. But after you started digging to the body and you kept on coming and you took the guy's best shots, it was a whole different game. Now, it's interesting you mentioned that because the sparring... Well, you know what? Let's rewind a little bit before we get to that. So you started boxing when you moved to the United States, you and your brother. At what point did you decide... How many amateur fights did you have before you decided to become professional? And whose decision was it? Did you have somebody telling you to go professional, or was it something that you decided?
We never planned on going professional. It was never a plan, or it was never something that I wanted to do. I was there with my life, a regular immigrant. We work in whatever we have a job on. I was illegal back then, but we would just get whatever job we could have back then. Mm-hmm. I used to work at a Jack in the Box. That was what I used to do.
You were the manager, right?
No, I was never a manager. I was a shift manager because I never wanted to be a manager because the hours were from 9 to 5. Oh. And if I worked from 9 to 5, I wouldn't have a chance to go box. But it was just like a hobby. And the reason why I fought was because we would spar with Julio, and we would get in such a good shape. He would leave, he would fight, and he would come back. And one day, Dave Martinez, our coach, he says, "You know what, Librado? You've been training, you're such a good shape and everything. Why don't you just have a fight? While Julio fights, I can get you a fight. Earn $400. I said, "Really? Okay, I'll take it." So the first time I got paid, I got $375 because they used to deduct $25 for the insurance. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was the happiest. That was like a whole week of working at Jack in the Box, I said, "Hey, I want to fight." So I was at this time I was working with a guy that he was a bread deliverer. Mm-hmm. So he would deliver bread to all the stores, and one day I tell him, "Hey, is it okay if I miss tomorrow, or I can come and help you like after 11? I'm gonna go weigh in and then I'll come back and help you finish the route." He says, "Weigh in? What are you gonna do?" "Well, I'm gonna have a boxing fight." Said, "Really? You gonna fight?" Yeah.
Oh, so they didn't even have an idea that you boxed.
No, nobody. Jeez. It was just something that, okay, I'll take the fight. I'll just go like that. And I actually had a couple fights like that where I would just wake up that day and Dave Martinez would call me, "Hey, Librado, there's a fight fell out for Roy Ingelberg. You want to take a fight? When? Tonight." "Okay, I'll take it." I said, "I'll go for you."
Hey, one thing can I add, Librado? Even though, you took punches because you came forward, your face didn't really mark up.
That's true.
You didn't get bruised up.
I was blessed, man. I don't know.
And I would always listen to that because you had Larry Merchant and Emmanuel Stewart call a lot of your fights, and they would always bring that up. That you had an iron chin, but especially that your face, you could get hit, but you wouldn't swell up that much.
Yeah, I guess I have.
So maybe you go work and they see you and just like nothing,
Yeah. Okay, so I will go to work, and like the next few days I will go to work, and sometimes I will come out of the newspaper, and even the customers, they didn't even know that I fought, and they would see me in the newspaper and they were like, "Holy shit, this is you!" I said, "Yeah, that's me." So I really had a very nice. It was different for me. I never really had a dream of a fighter.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I never had a dream of becoming a world champion or a dream of being a fighter and living that life. It was I just needed money. I really just needed to meet ends with at the end of the month, And my brother was a different story. He was such a good fighter. He could fight. But something happened with him when he would be in the stage, when he would be at the fights. He didn't have that killer instinct. And that was the difference with me. I just wanted to get the fight over with, you know. So I never wanted to go the distance. I always said,
Right.
you know what, I'm just gonna knock him out. I'm just gonna knock him out, and that's it. And it worked for me. So that
Well, it's interesting you described that thing about your brother, because there's a guy I know at my gym. When he spars, he looks untouchable. He'll go to the
right.
body. You can't hit him. I mean, he's an offensive fighter, but with defense. But then when he fights, he's an amateur. When he gets in the ring for an actual fight, all of a sudden, like he won't pull the trigger. And even a guy, his trainer told me, he says, like, I don't know what the fuck happens with him. It's like when he's sparring, he looks fantastic, and then when he goes in the actual fight, he'll become gun shy or something.
Yeah.
You think it's the pressure?
It's weird. I don't know, because it was always a riddle with my brother. Because he was so good. He did so good against Mikael Kessler. Mikael Kessler couldn't touch him against Anthony Green. With me, they would beat me up. They really would beat me up. And with him, he was just so good. But when he would fight, he just couldn't close the show. He would hurt everyone, and he just couldn't close it. And they sometimes they call it sparring mentality. They feel secure with a headgear. They feel secure with big gloves. And when they don't have it, they feel a little bit off. So that could be the case.
Yeah, that could be. It could also be the because it's a lot of it. You know, it's mental. Also, it's like you said. Some people don't have that edge, or some people are self-conscious when they step in the ring, and it sort of causes them to freeze just a little bit, and that difference will become very apparent once they're actually in the ring, even though it seems small.
Right, and it happens not only to fighters. It happens to artists. It happens to singers. It happens to all of them. They get stage fright or something doesn't come out. You know, they can't perform as they would rehearse or practice. And sometimes it's just the contrary. You know, some fighters, or some people, they step on the stage and they just take over. It's something that is natural for them. You know, maybe it's that. It's not only in boxing. It's all over. You know.
Yeah, man, it happens.
So your brother is sorry, BDA. So your brother Enrique is younger than you, right?
Yes, 2 years younger. Yeah.
So he had a little bit better of the privilege of like learning boxing a little earlier, and you know what the background before you did, right?
Yeah, we turned professional.
But you had the hunger. You had the hunger more, no, because you were coming from Mexico, and you felt that you just needed to get the job done, no.
Well, it could be it, but my brother, he started a little bit later than me, a few months later, but he stayed more in the amateurs. He actually did very well in the amateurs. There was a good chance that he would go and represent Mexico for the amateurs, but at that time he didn't have papers. We were illegally here, so if he would go back to Mexico, he wouldn't have been able to come back to the United States. So he didn't go, but he did very well in the amateurs. Because of his style, because of having a headgear and all these things. But for my brother, somehow he could not finish the job when he would fight.
Yeah, because he lost some close decisions, no majority split decision. He also had a good chin, so he didn't give up either. But he got the losses, but he didn't necessarily get knocked out or anything. It's just like you said, maybe that just little extra to close the show.
Yeah.
Well, it's also I've heard or spoken to fighters too before. So there's a different, like I said, the mentality. Some guys, they just they want to be the best. They want to get the wins. They want to. Some people like Andrew Ward, for example, Bernard Hopkins, they'll be dirty. They'll do whatever it takes to win the fight. Then you have other guys. All they want to do is fight. They don't care if they win or lose. They just want to fight. So there might be that mentality too in there of I don't need to push all that much in the fight as long as I don't lose by too much. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I was watching the first when you were undefeated, 22 fights. And you fought over there where Mr. BDA is from Canada against Otis Grant.
Yeah.
Oh, you beat that guy up like in 7 rounds. You took the fight out of him. The corner stopped it. I mean, they were kind of like didn't want to, but they had no choice.
Yeah, I became very good friends with the Grants. They are family to me. I love those guys to death, you know.
Yeah,
But I actually went to Montreal and I trained with them, and it was some of the best times ever. Yeah,
yeah, that was the big dynamic here because, well, first of all, when I remember this was in 2000 and this was pre YouTube and all that social media. I was reading Ring magazine. I think it was 2004 or 2005. And like I said, there was no YouTube, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook. If there was a fighter fighting overseas or whatever, and he wasn't on TV, you couldn't really watch him. And I remember I was reading an article from Ivan Goldman, who used to be a writer over at Ring magazine, and he spoke about you. He says, "Oh, I've been hearing rumors that there's a guy named Librado Andrade who's giving people tough work over at the gym, and supposedly he's getting the best or the better of Julio Gonzalez, and imagine him against Joe Calzai," he said. And so when I heard that name, and I said, "Oh, this guy, they're talking about him as if he's this monster that nobody wants to spar." So I remember that name. And then a couple of years later, you came to Montreal to fight Otis Grant. And I said, all right, finally we're going to get to see what this guy's all about. And Otis Grant, for people that don't remember, he was a contender. He won a world title, I believe. And
he was a world champion, yeah.
And slick.
160.
Okay, yeah, it was a 160. Yeah, and slick. He was a good southpaw, fast, quick fighter. And you ended up, like Gonzalo said, just classic Librado Andrade style. Pressure, a lot of body work. He caught you with some good shots, but he just couldn't seem to put a dent in you. And then you beat him up. And then when I saw that fight, and by the way, I still have that, because if you go to YouTube right now, I don't think you can find I don't think they have the best quality of the fight there, but I still have the tape. So if anybody wants a good quality of that fight, I have that fight in my archives. But before we get to that fight, I want to just again rewind a little bit. So at what point did you start? Because when you were as a professional starting out, you didn't really have the backing. You were getting fights at the last minute, which is still impressive that you managed to stay undefeated. Because usually when you have that type of schedule, they'll put you in there against anybody, and usually that results in records like 10 fights, 5 losses, something like that. You were pretty lucky in that respect, and I think it also speaks to your talent. At what point did you start getting backing from the big promotions, or start actually getting a little bit more training time? Like when did things start picking up?
I actually felt I never had it. I signed with Golden Boy, and Golden Boy never really gave me a fair share. Not a Canelo share. Of course, I was no Canelo, and no disrespect to anybody, but I really felt they never really took care of our careers. I always ended up fighting somewhere else. And okay, so if that was my mission, and go fight somewhere else and become a world champion somewhere else, I took it. I didn't complain. But I really thought we were good enough and we were dedicated enough to get our fair share and have a promoter to work for us the way they do for other fighters, or the way they... I don't know if that just turned out to be the case with us, but I always ended up fighting in the middle of nowhere from another promoter in Kentucky, type of thing, for a title or for something else. And I would go, and I'm supposed to lose. I'm supposed to be the loser. There's a fight against Willie Stewart. And they just sent me to the middle of nowhere in Louisville, Kentucky. It was against another promoter. And none of Golden Boy went to go see me fight or went to go see me. It was just my coach, me, and my brothers. And we fought and we won. But clearly we were going to get robbed. I dropped them like 5 times. They only counted like 3 times. I literally put them on a coma. And I still kind of I only won by 2 points. It was just incredible the way. And Golden Boy never gave us our fair share of taking care of us. And that's how my career kind of kind of happened. But I don't complain. I'm not saying oh because I had the best time, and I never expected to get that far in boxing. I just wanted to fight locally, whatever they would give me, and that was it.
But
So
it's interesting.
I am happy with what happened.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that the Golden Boy wasn't putting a lot of heat behind you because we're talking 2004 right now when that happened. 2004, the Golden Boy promotions were just starting out. I believe they started out in 2002, and it wasn't
They
until
started with us.
exactly
We
yeah.
were the originals. Yeah.
But they didn't have that many. It's not like today, 15 years later. Back then, they only. I think they only hit it big when Marco Antonio Barrera beat Morales the third time. That's when they finally clinched, a guy who made it in the. I mean, because Marco Antonio Barrera, he was on the bit of the losing streak after just as he signed with Golden Boy, he lost against Pacquiao, and so Golden Boy was sort of like sweating bullets a little bit. So if they have a guy like you who's coming forward, you and your brother come forward fighters, entertaining, you can provide entertainment. Why wouldn't they provide more coverage for you or put a little more heat?
And at this time, there was no Mexican at that level and at that size. The biggest one was a 154, and of course they were growing Canelo in 2008. That's when they started bringing Canelo up. But they had a few fighters. It was 6 of us. It was a guy from Argentina, Guillermo Saputo. It was Jose Navarro. He came out of the Olympics.
Right.
My brother and myself, and there was a couple more. Mighty Mike Anchondo was another one.
Yeah.
And we were the original ones. We were the ones that they signed to start their career for Golden Boy as a promoter. But most of us really felt that Golden Boy never lived up to whatever that night or that day that they say when we signed that contract. They never really lived it up to it. Even though it was a very low contract, they never lived up to it.
Now, but why do you think that is? Do you think it's just they were too green when it came to? Because I also heard back then, 2005, 2006, I heard that De La Hoya he didn't really know what he was doing because he was just getting his feet wet and he was spending way too much money on certain things that weren't necessary, like big offices and stuff like that. Like, do you think it was just they were green or they just didn't see the potential or?
Who knows? But they had everything behind them. They had Telefutura with them.
HBO Latino too, right?
They had Don Chargen as a matchmaker. They had a lot of people that had the experience and everything so they can accomplish whatever they wanted to accomplish. And I feel they did. They did because they had a TV time. They were with HBO Latino. They had a lot of dates every month, I think, between HBO Latino and Telefutura. They had a show every month being televised. No other promoter was doing that at that time. So I don't know what it was. I really can't tell.
Well, whatever happened, you did end up getting fights in television, and like I said, people on Ring Magazine and in the internet, in message boards, like I said, this was pre-Facebook, pre-YouTube. You started to get some hype because of your gym wars, and people were asking, like, who the fuck is this guy? And everybody's talking about it over there in California. Coming up, prior to the Otis Grant fight, who else did you spar with? You mentioned Danny Green, you mentioned Mikkel Kessler before he fought Mundi in 2005. Like, who else? Who are some other names?
Believe it or not, we used to spar with Sugar Shane. Sugar Shane used to come here all the time and spar with us. That's when before he was like super known, before he fought Oscar De La Hoya.
Holy shit!
He was like 32-0, and like kind of nobody knew who Sugar Shane was.
He was a monster.
So Pomona is close to La Habra?
Yeah, it's right next door. Yeah. Okay. It's like 20 minutes away. Yeah.
Did you end up sparring Sugar Shane Mosley?
Yeah, we used to spar. Yeah.
Man, let me tell you something. He must have been fucking lightning quick because that was the lightweight version, right?
Oh yeah, he was so fast. And he had this weird way of taking his shoulder under you, and he will bump you right in the middle of the solar flex with that shoulder. It was like he would hit you. I was like, oh my god, he hit me right in the middle of my solar flex. Like he took the air out, but it was funny. Yeah.
That's an interesting move. That's an interesting move.
Yeah.
So lightweight Sugar Shane Mosley was a monster because he was extremely fast and he whacked.
Yeah.
And again, another thing that I love is, like I said before, most people they'll go to the body with the left hook because that's where the liver is. They want to get that liver. But Sugar Shane Mosley was one of those guys that would dig with right hooks to the other side of the body, and I feel like a lot of people don't do that anymore. It's everybody wants to go with the left hook to the body. Did you learn anything about body punching from sparring Shane Mosley?
No, I can't really remember that, but with the body punching, we would learn it with Julio because we needed to slow down Julio. I remember me and my brother used to say, bro, I'll go first with Julio, I'll go to the body, and then you take him on the last 2 rounds or the last 3 rounds. We said, okay, to slow him down, because Julio was just a monster. He just kept coming, and he would just come to hurt.
It's interesting. BDA, last show or 2 shows ago,
right?
Bucho, which co-host with Mr. BDA Librado, he asked about Julio Gonzalez, and I mentioned I think he passed away. A lot of people didn't know that, including Bucho. And I was going to ask you yesterday when I was talking to you on Messenger. I was going to ask you, did you know Julio Gonzalez? And ever since you started speaking about him, like he was like family to you, it's like really interesting because I didn't know that, and it just crossed my mind yesterday. I was just hey, remember Julio, but yeah, Bucho mentioned him. How, if you don't mind me asking, how did he pass away? I can't remember.
Well, after he retired, he had some land in Guerrero Negro, Baja California, where he's from.
I know where, yes.
So, and he would take his workers to the field because he would grow vegetables, tomatoes and vegetables, some kind of vegetables. So he was taking one of his workers to the field, and in the way back, I think somebody ran him over, just head on. And I think he died instantly. It was a tragic death. He was going on his motorcycle, so he had no protection. And that's how he died. Very sad.
That's a shame. It's interesting because Gonzalez too, like I say, he had that war against Letterlow, but he was also known for having finally ended the reign of what was his name? I don't even know how you say it in German and in English, but Michalowski. Yeah, that's how you say it. Okay, yeah, because that guy was around for years and years. They always wanted him to fight Roy Jones, but they never fought, and finally Gonzalez went over there.
And you know what? Even now, I don't think they give him the props he deserves, because Julio was the first light heavyweight Mexican of the world. He beat a very undefeated guy, 48-0, which it would have been that fight was history in the making. If Matuszewski would have beat Julio, he would have become the 49-0 and beat Rocky Marciano's record for being undefeated. And if Julio would have won, he would have become the first Mexican light heavyweight of the champion. And he did, he won. But just nobody mentions anything. Now, because of social media, they bury everything, and whatever's happening now, that's what it is.
Yeah, because look at Andy Ruiz. He won first ever Mexican heavyweight, and they made this. They gave him a lot of publicity for that. But just 10 years ago, it seems like things changed a lot, man. Because 10 years ago, look at Margarito too. 10 years ago, after a long career, it was only after he beat Miguel Cotto that people, even Mexicans, that Mexicans started saying, "Oh, this guy, we can back this guy up." And that's what I feel. The same thing with you. If you would have been fighting now, I think more networks would be televising your fights right away, because they would look at you and they would say, "Whoa, this is a Mexican guy. He fights in an entertaining style, and he's a big Mexican." So I think more Mexicans would have been behind.
It would be a very different story.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I remember watching your live fights, and a few occasions, like the TV's on and the sports channel, and here you are fighting, brawling in a good fight, and I was like, I would just get glued to the television. I was like, whoa, this guy's a warrior, and that's when I was like 15, 16, and that's why it's interesting. I recall you, and it's like, yeah, we got to get Librado on because he's a warrior, the original I mean, there's always been great Mexican fighters, but like now how they say Mexican style and all that, you were like the classic. Even if you watch your fights now, what these fighters try to do so much, pressure, 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 and break down. And especially when you had a guy hurt, you would smell that, you would sense that. Like you said, compared to your brother, you did have the killer instinct.
Yeah. So we're just in a different time, and we just gotta live with it, And it's a little bit of a shame because now we have fighters that are very good. For example, Margarito, he was very good at his time. But if they see him fight now, he gets criticized. He only gets to be seen now in the big picture and the big. But when he was young, he was a monster. He was somebody to respect. Now they see him on social media and everywhere, and now they burn him down, which is a little bit unfair. And it's all because of social media. Now they expect to see the Ryan Garcias. They expect to see the good looking, the good boxing, and all of this. But in reality, all they do is they train for the camera.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of see that they train for that perfect knockout, that picture shot, and it's taken away a lot from the real boxing.
But it's interesting because sticking to that point, most fans of boxing, I mean, they like boxing, but they don't understand the effort that it takes to make it to the level at which you arrived. And they don't understand how good you have to be to just be in the top 10 of a division. Because think about it, there's hundreds of boxers out there. They all want a championship title. So just to make it to the top 10 and to be able to beat most of those top 10 guys, it's incredible. I mean, you talked about how tough Julio Gonzalez was, and he was. I mean, he was well-conditioned, good chin, good power. And then he steps in there against Roy Jones, who was at some point, for a while, the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet. And he won virtually every round against Julio Gonzalez. So when people say, Roy Jones is overrated, Roy Jones sucks, like, you don't understand how good you have to be to make guys like Julio Gonzalez look average. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
It's a lack of education in a way.
Yeah, and that was the case with Mikael Kessler. Mikael Kessler, when I fought him, we were undefeated. But man, Mikael Kessler was so good on his feet. I really never had somebody like him in front of me like that. Me and Mikael sparred, but it was just very light. He was just starting his camp. So I didn't show anything. He didn't show anything. So it was just a light sparring. But when I fought him, he was just like a jet on his feet. His footwork was phenomenal. And I was so used to wars in the gym, just trading shots, toe to toe. And then after the fight, I went to go say hi to Mikael, and Mikael said, I was never going to give you a chance to stand in front of you. And whoever stands in front of you is stupid. You know what? Yeah, that was the case.
Well, let's talk about that, because the first time I really saw you fight, because this was pre-YouTube, pre-really torrents or anything like that. I'd never seen you fight. I'd read about you, but I'd never seen you fight. So you fight Otis Grant. People in the United States, they can't see you, but I'm lucky enough to be here in Montreal, and they televise that fight. So going into the Otis Grant fight, did you know who Otis Grant was, or had you seen fights of his? Did you know what his style was?
No. My manager and who they used to take care of me, they sent me a couple tapes of him, but they were they couldn't show really a lot. All I knew was that I trained so hard for that fight. I was in Big Bear for 2 months. I was running every day in the mountains. I was just so strong. I said, you know what? There's no way he can keep up with me. I know there's no way he can keep up with me. And that was the case. And then after, when I talked to Otis and Howard, they said, we just said, Otis is done. That's it. Hang it up. Hang him up, Otis. You're done. This guy just beat you. Just hang him up. But then we saw how strong you are, and you just kept coming and said, whoa, maybe Otis wasn't done. Maybe Otis had a few more fights because you're just so fucking strong.
Exactly, yeah, because, it's interesting. He hit you with some good shots, but you just kept coming. Even because, first of all, didn't you have a problem throughout your career, or I don't know if that's an urban legend, but where you couldn't keep your hands up for more than 5 seconds?
No, what happened is because of all those wars with Julio and sparring and La Habra and stuff like that, I have calcio deposits all
Holy
through my elbow.
shit.
So
Holy shit.
when I have my hands up and you hit it, the opposite of hyperextension, if you hyper bend them, they get numb and they hurt.
Oh.
So I said, fuck it. I'm just gonna drop my hands and I just pray I don't get hit solidly. And I kind of learned how to roll the shot, and I didn't absorb the full shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good thing. But talking about getting hurt, the only one that hurt me in sparring was Stevenson. O'Donnell Stevenson. I sparred with him many times.
With who?
He could. O'Donnell
Oh,
Stevenson.
Adonis. Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, he's
He's a puncher, no?
as heavy-handed as it gets. You know, there's
He's so deceiving. Yeah.
I talked to another fighter here from Montreal. He was a professional too. He fought Stevenson twice in the amateurs, and this guy, he was actually, because Stevenson in the amateurs, he didn't do that well. I mean, he wasn't as far as I know, he wasn't Canadian champion or anything in the amateurs. So the guy that I was talking to was actually the favorite going into the fight. Well, he ended up getting stopped in the amateurs. So when he fought Stevenson the second time, he knew about the punching power. So he trained to just box him from the outside, don't let it, minimize contact and just win a boring decision. Well, even then he got caught. He said, I'd never fought anybody so heavy-handed. Like, he'll hit you on the top of the head, he'll graze you, whatever, and you'll just see stars. So some guys are like that. They just have that heavy fucking power. So I didn't know that. You sparred Adonis Stevenson then?
Yeah, when he was just starting, when he was 2-0, 1-0, 3-0, on the first Bute fight, he sparred with me a lot. On the second fight, he didn't spar with me much. Okay. But they had a little bit of disagreements with him and Howard as a trainer, so he wasn't around that much. But on the first fight with Bute, he was helping me. Yeah.
Did you when you sparred him, did you manage to get under his shots and keep coming forward and go to the body, or did he make you think twice about coming inside?
No, I give him pressure. I always hide it very well when I would get hurt. Mm-hmm. I would get hurt, but I knew how to hide it very well. And especially to the body, I always had a soft body. So if I ever come back and whoever fights me, just know my weakness is my body.
But it's interesting because you've again, usually when you have a guy like you who comes forward and you've been in there with guys like Kessler, like Danny Green, Gonzalez, Sparring and all that. When you fight, when you taste the punch from Stevenson, do you go like, holy moly, what does this guy have in his gloves? Is it a special type of power?
It was just heavy, very, very heavy. He landed, and you would think you're far away, where he wasn't gonna reach you, and he would land it. That was a surprise. And then it was heavy. It was a very heavy shot. And he didn't hurt me in a way where I would fall or nothing like that, but I would feel it. I was like, wow, this guy hit hard.
It looks like he's not that tall for light heavy or super middle, but his arms are like really long, no? Stevenson's?
Yes, and that's what it is deceiving about him. He catches you at the end of the punch thinking that he's out of range, but he's not. He throws that shot, and he still has good 3-5 inches on you that you didn't expect or you didn't calculate right.
And you're being like 6'2", you being 6'2", like taller than him. You think, oh, he's shorter, but then his arms are longer, so you don't anticipate that he's got that the distance advantage, reach advantage. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
What do you think? But obviously, what happened to him is very like sad. The last fight, but I think he's recovering. No, but that's unfortunate. No,
very unfortunate. Nobody wants that to happen to anybody, and there's
sorry. Go ahead.
I think there's been some fighters that have taken that, like myself, that we have taken a lot more shots to the head and never got to that point. And it's very unfortunate that some fighters, they get hit a couple of times like that, and that happens to them. That affects them for the rest of their life, them and their families. it's a very sad situation. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the risk. That's the risk that it's interesting. It's not the big puncher that's gonna damage you. It's the guy that sort of like you, the guy that's gonna keep coming, keep throwing shots. Because you had heavy hands, but it wasn't the type of power like Gennady Golovkin power or Adonis Stevenson power, where if he hit you once, you were dropping the guy. Yours was just heavy-handed, thudding shots. And those are the types of fights that can be dangerous, because if the other guy can take the shots, but he's still taking shots, so his brain keeps rattling round after round after round, and that's what causes the brain
exactly
damage.
Yeah, because some kind of power like they hit you and you go down, and it's like you're protected from more punishment.
Yeah, but taking it round after round, that's gotta be oof. Now, going back to your career, so you fought, you beat Otis Grant, and then you beat him up, and you do that backflip that you always do, or you always did after a fight. How did that start, by the way? Just as a trivia thing, why did you start just jumping from the top rope?
Because it was kind of cool to see it from so high, like a wrestler, stuff like that. I love wrestling. I used to love, when I was a kid, that was my favorite thing to watch. I would run from wherever I was. I would run home and go watch wrestling. And of course, the Mexican wrestling, they do all these jumps and stuff like that. And now they're starting to do it in the American wrestling. But in the Mexican wrestling was very like a lot of jumps.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it was really cool. So when I was acrobatic, yeah. So when I was 17 years old, we bought a trampoline and we learned how to flip. And we actually used to do like, we wouldn't stop until we do like 100 flips. And okay, that was an exercise, and one day I said, you know what, I'm gonna get on top of the rope and jump back and do a flip. And I did it, and it worked. It looked spectacular from back there. Nobody has done it before. Now we have some very acrobatic guys like Lopez, the guy from New York, Teofimo Lopez. He does some crazy stuff. He does a backflip.
He's smaller too. But he's a smaller guy, so he can probably get away with that. Gonzalo, you want to say something?
I was just gonna say, because I know the AAA Wrestling Mexican Federation is from Tonalá, Jalisco, I believe, but they probably used to go there too to León, to León, and where you're from.
I never saw that in Mexico. I used to see it on TV.
Okay,
on the Mexican channels over here. So
my father's from he's not from Irapuato. He's from Guanajuato.
Oh man, right from the capital. Yeah, that's nice.
And when I was a teenager, I ran away to León, Guanajuato, to San Miguel Allende, because you mentioned León, and I was staying up there in La Colonia Chapalita, it's called. And there's some real tough neighborhoods over there. Some guys got me from El Cuecillo, and they broke a bottle over El Cuecillo. It's one of the ruthless gangs over there in León. Man, the saying, la vida no vale nada, life's not worth anything.
Yeah. We come to this earth crying and we live crying. Yeah.
Well, it depends, right? I mean, you can go out jumping too.
Yeah.
Jumping from.
I never had a very tough growing up. My mom, we were poor, but my mom always protected us. My mom always filled us with a lot of love, and we were the youngest of 7, me and my brother. So we never had no necessity. We would be hungry for the things that other kids would have, but we never went through the rough stuff. We never went through the rough neighborhoods. We never went through the rough time. We had our necessities, and that was a blessing in itself. So,
well, one thing I respect about you, not only about your style in the ring, but also like you said, the work ethic. Because I mean, you're working in Jack in the Box and you're fighting full time. I mean, full time. Well, you're taking professional fights at the same time. I mean, that's.
I was 22-0, and I was still working a full time job at Jack.
Yeah, see, that's dedication. That's the type of dedication you can't buy. It's you You grow, you
That
get
doesn't
taught.
happen anymore. Though. Not you're 4-0, 3-0, and now you want a car, you want a sponsor, you want. That doesn't happen anymore. So I would like.
Hey, that's good, man. Hey, you know what? Another fighter that sort of fought the same way, the same style as you, Glenn Johnson, when he was coming up, because you know he was undefeated before he ran into Bernard Hopkins, and then afterwards, that was in '97, I believe. He ended up losing a bunch of fights afterwards because they would match him up against anybody, and he would get robbed too in Europe back in the day when those fights weren't televised, so nobody gave a damn. So he had a bad record at some point, and the worse his record got, the more they would match him, you know, with anybody. But he would eventually work as a construction worker, work during the, I think he would work the late shift or something like that, and then he would go during the day to the boxing gym. And I'm thinking, holy fuck, this guy's working at manual labor and then going to train afterwards for professional fights. See, that's dedication, and he stuck to it, and he ended up becoming light heavyweight champion of the world. So that's the type of thing I can respect.
Nate Campbell. Nate Campbell, he had the night shift working as a stucker on a conventional store, and he was a world champion. You know, and those are the people that. These are the fighters. Like, this is what I see in boxing today. I see in boxing today that the general people, that regular fans, they cannot make a connection with fighters anymore, because now they're too much of a superstar. Now you can't dress like them. You can't be like them. They're just out of reach. You cannot relate your life to them. And before, there was too much of that. So that was why there was these local heroes, these local stars, because they will come and support you, because they came out of the convention store they used to go shop all the time, or the restaurant you used to go work with all the time, or the mechanic that fixes your father's car. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
yeah, that's
now everyone is such a superstar.
Well, I mean, it depends too. Well, hold on a second. Give me it's. Sorry, I'm sending a message here. Yeah, it depends too on the type of fighter, because, like, again, with Golden Boy, you didn't have the backing. Apart from what you're telling us, they weren't backing you. With Ryan Garcia, for example, from the get-go, they're backing him because he's got that, you know, baby face, and they know they can market him to young girls. You know, most teenage girls aren't watching boxing, so when they find a guy that actually appeals to that demographic, they'll just put everything they've got behind him. But I mean, it still happens. Like you mentioned, Nate Campbell, Glenn Johnson. Currently, Gabriel Rosado is not that long ago. He was the type of guy who he was working delivering laundry, I think, or dry cleaning or something, and training during the day. And it's just through sheer work and keep on winning and keep on looking good, and finally they get some recognition. But that's always been the boxing game. It's some guys are gonna get more promotion from the get-go, and others have to work twice as hard just to get some recognition. So it's not fair, but that's the way it is.
And it's okay, you know, that's okay. That's what boxing is all about. The thing is, where I'm not criticizing, what I'm comparing now is like, they don't want to be that anymore. The fighter doesn't want to be that anymore. They want to have the easy way out. They want to have the comfortable thing. Now they want to have a strength and conditioning coach. Now they want to have a nutritionist. And they want to have all these things, when back then that wasn't there. And what really made you want it and be more hungry about all this in the fighting was because you didn't have that. Was because you didn't have what others have the luxury of, you know?
That's why it's interesting that you're talking about this, and like how there wasn't that many bigger Mexican fighters at like 160, 68, and 75. But like Canelo, when he got started, look, they used to take him down to Tijuana. And he was like maybe what people would consider a product of the media, and maybe he garnered more attention because his red hair, you know. And anyways, like the coach back in the gym used to say, "Oh, this guy no sabe pelear, he can't fight," and he didn't get that much credit, but obviously he stood out. He used to go down to El Cheto's Boxing Club down in Tijuana. I don't know if you're familiar, but anyways, he got a tie to one of the guys there, my buddy Jorge Juarez. We actually beat him.
It was Guadalajara, no?
He's from Guadalajara, but they took him down to Tijuana for that fight. And he got in the auditorium, and it was empty. There wasn't that many people, and like he lost, but they gave him a draw. He was early in his career. But what I'm trying to say is he's been able to transition to the point where if he was a product of the media, he's kind of like developed his skills and came into his own. So I mean, he does the toe-to-toe thing sometimes, but he's also doing the boxing, which is a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
But not too many people can do that.
Well, there's something that you can take away from Canelo. You could criticize him, you can take whatever it is, but Canelo, he's very, very dedicated, and he learns, and he develops whatever he needs to develop, and does whatever he needs to be doing to accomplish what he wants. And he's very good at it. He has developed into this fighter that he is now, which he's very, very good. And nobody can take that away from him. And he doesn't let no one take it from him because he continues to succeed in that field, you know?
Yeah, by the way, I believe that you should have been the first super middleweight champion of the world, because I think you know what happened. But anyways.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to that because I wanted to keep this like in a chronological order, because we talked about Otis Grant and you ended up beating him up, and after the fight you shake hands with Otis Grant, always very gracious, whether in defeat or in victory, and you part ways. You go back and you get the shot against Mikkel Kessler. Now, for people that don't remember, at that point, Kessler was considered, again, just like you, Librado, at that point, there was no YouTube, I think YouTube was just starting out in 2005, but there were no fights. Kessler was another guy that, over here in North America, we didn't really know much about him. We would hear that he had he'd beaten Anthony Mundine, Manny Siaka, who was a tough Puerto Rican power puncher, and Kessler beat him up and stopped him. He outboxed Mundine, who was a very fast guy, very athletic. And I think Eric Lucas too, at that point, he'd beaten him up. And Eric Lucas, another common opponent of yours, they asked him, hey, how would you rate Mikkel Kessler? He said, other than Roy Jones, he's the best I've ever fought. So that tells you how good Kessler was. So finally, they put in the fight. They set up the fight between you and him. It's I remember I was hyped up for that fight because it was two boogeymen. And it was
I like to share something about in my career. Like, I know I got shots at the world title, but they never give them to me. I always had to earn them. I always had to do eliminations, which now they get away with it somehow. They go over the elimination fights. Mm-hmm. They don't have that anymore too much. But every title shot that I got, I had to eliminate myself with a number 2 or number 3, or whoever was next in line for the world title. So I had to earn my shot. And when I fought Mikkel Kessler, I didn't supposed to fight Mikkel Kessler. I was supposed to fight Marcus Beyer, which Marcus Beyer has passed away already. But he was the one that I was supposed to fight. They actually pay me to step to the side and not fight Marcus Beyer. And I had to wait a whole other year to fight Mikkel Kessler. I was going to fight the winner of Marcus Beyer and Mikkel Kessler, which Mikkel Kessler won, and that's how I ended up fighting him. But I was supposed to fight Marcus Beyer.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. So they set up the Kessler-Beyer fight first because it was a unification, I think, right?
Yeah, because he was about to retire, or he was about to finish his career, and he just wanted to make it a dream of fighting a unification fight, something like that. So they paid me to step to the side. I took the money, and then I got the winner, which he was Mikkel Kessler.
And by the way, hold on. Let me just give me a second here, Stu. If you're listening, I don't have you on Skype, so I can't send you the link for the invite. So find me over at Hangouts. If you have Twitter too, you can send us an instant message on Twitter, and we'll try to get you. I'll try to get you the link. But since Bucho's not here, I don't have access to Skype, so I can't talk to you there. So I don't know. I don't know how to send you that link, man. Right, Gonzalo, do you have Stu on Skype or?
I don't have Skype.
All right.
I'm not too familiar with that, app.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not a big internet guy. People think that because we run this show here on YouTube that I'm a technical whiz or something. I'm not. Not with social
I
media,
think
man.
Bucho, yes. Can somebody else send it to him?
Yeah, somebody try to
From
get in touch with, because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Stu has good questions for Librado too. All right, so okay, so Librado, interesting. So you weren't supposed to. I mean, you were supposed to fight Marcus Bayer. So Kessler ends up wiping the floor with Bayer. I think it was 4 rounds or something. So you're stepping.
Yeah.
You're stepping in against Kessler. You're probably thinking, like, what are you thinking before the fight? Like, well, what's the game plan? Just same old thing, pressure, pick off his shots. You're willing to take some shots from him in order to get some in.
Well, this is when I started changing my mentality. I said, you know what? It looks like every time I'm gonna fight an important fight or something big like that, I'm gonna have to go away to another country or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem that I'm getting any help back here or anything, you know. Which I don't care. I'll take it. As long as I'm getting paid, that's what we want, right? So I said, I'm just gonna go knock him out. I don't care if I lose every round. I'm just gonna knock him out. I'm gonna get him tired, whatever I have to take to knock him out. But Mikhail Kessler was so ready. He just gave me zero chance. And even then, I got some shots in, but nothing to hurt him, you know.
Yeah,
and that was the story with Lucian too. I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go over there and I'm gonna knock him out. I don't care if I lose every single round like I did with Kessler, but I'm gonna get to him. I'm gonna make him fight. I'm gonna make him fight every single second of every single round. And that was my plan.
You certainly did put pressure on him. I mean, it was nonstop pressure, but he was just, because it's interesting because your type of style, if somebody backs up in a straight line against you, you're gonna trap him in the ropes, and you can cut the ring off pretty well too. But what he was doing was, I don't know, you tell me if this is true or not, but it seemed like it wasn't just his foot movement, but it was the fact that he would punch you and the timing he had to right away spin you so that you kept walking forward. Was it the power too? That, because I mean, obviously you got a good chin, but it can't feel good to be taking shots from 10-ounce gloves, right?
Yeah, I never felt any power from Luciana the first one. On the first fight, I didn't feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just on the 4th or 5th round, I got him. I pinned him on the corner, and I hurt him. I hurt him with like a 1-2 or something like that. And I said to myself, I remember clearly the bell rang, and I smiled, and I winked at him, and I went back to my corner, and I was talking to myself, and I said, I got him. I'm gonna be a world champion tonight. I know I'm going to be a world champion tonight. And I walked to my corner and said, I know I got him. There's nothing this guy can do. There's nothing this guy can do. Well, the next round came, and he just kept going, and I kept tagging him. But for some reason, the referee kept being involved. And I just felt, okay, so maybe the referee is there. Maybe he knows that the other guy is hurt. He's going to stop the fight. The next round came, and one of the rounds, like in the 8th round or 10th round, Lucian pushed me, and when he pushed me, it was clearly a push. And Marlon Wright, he came and he started counting, and before I even got up, he was already an 8. And I kept complaining to him, and I said, "There is no way. He just pushed me," and he counted. So he gave him the shot. And if you go back to the tape, you clearly see a push. It was just a push. And Marlon Wright was right there, right in front of him. And every time he would separate us, he would lean his body towards me. So in the 11th round and in the 12th round, I know Bute had nothing left. And I just knew it was one shot. And I just couldn't get it in there. But Marlon Wright was right there in front of it. And I was thinking, he's going to stop the fight. He's going to stop the fight. There's nothing. There's nothing more. What else is he going to do? Look at him. He's dead.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, that fight, I remember you came back to Montreal, people knew who you were because of the Otis Grant fight. And at that time, Bute was, even though he wasn't Canadian, he was Romanian, but he was adopted by the public. They loved Bute. I mean, he was,
right.
He was the big name here, and with good reason. I mean, he was a good boxer, but he could punch hard as well. Now, when you were about to fight him, I remember during the build-up to the fight, I thought, oh boy, here we go. Andrade, he's a good pressure fighter, but he's fighting another quick-handed guy who has good foot movement and who can punch too, just like Mikkel Kessler. What did you do? Did you learn, like, going into the fight, were you more confident knowing that you'd gone 12 rounds against Mikkel Kessler and that you could improve on that performance? Or what was your mentality going into the Bute fight?
I was ready. I was ready for whatever was going on outside. When I fought Mikkel Kessler, it's incredible what happens to fight in front of 25, 30,000 people. It's just like, what the heck is going on here? The amount of energy that it just generates, and you being in the middle of all that, it's just incredible. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. But at the same time, it's like a high that you can never experience, and you live. It feels so good. And when you're right there in the middle and all this chanting, booing and screaming, it's just something else. But I was ready. So when I went with Bute, I knew there was going to be a lot of people, and I know I was going to be the enemy or whatever. But I just said, you know what? I'm just going to breathe all this in. I'm going to enjoy it, and now I'm going to kick his ass.
so
I worked so hard for that fight. So hard.
So the Kessler
that's
fight,
like really true.
Go ahead, Gonzalo.
Sorry. When they talk about like the big stage, like you could be fighting, and I mean you fought in foreign countries, like you used to go up to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and but like with the 30,000 people that you mentioned, like for example, you think it'll be harder for Pacquiao or Thurman's? Is this Thurman's first pay-per-view? Just really fast, when we just get back on topic. The bright lights.
I don't know. I think it's a 50-50. Depends if Pacquiao. You never know when Pacquiao's gonna age. If we were talking about Pacquiao maybe 5 years ago, he was more consistent. He was gonna come and win and overwhelm Thurman. But now it's a little bit of a toss-up. I'm leaning 51-49 towards Pacquiao because he's the busier guy and he's explosive and he keeps coming. But Thurman has a very good chance. Thurman. He's young, and he has all these angles, and he can hurt Pacquiao.
Takes one
shot.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Brady. I just wanted to get that in real quick about the bright lights when he mentioned that.
You guys call me back. I have to take a call.
Yeah. Go ahead, Librado. Go ahead. By the way, Gonzalo, we should probably mention to Librado when he comes back that he should tell us when he's had enough of our questions, because sometimes I get too hung up on asking my questions, and I don't realize it because we've already been at this for about more than an hour. So we should tell him when he comes
stepped
back.
out. He's coming back.
Yeah. He's coming back. He said, but when he comes back, we should tell him that it's up. He should tell us when he's had like maybe 10 minutes before he.
Okay. Yeah. I'll let. Yeah.
By the way, I'm still trying to.
We can tell him when he gets back.
Yeah, we'll tell him. We'll tell him. But I'm still waiting for Stu. I don't know. I told Bucho, I sent him a message and I said, send Stu the link again because he says it's not working. But I mean, I don't know. But just Stu, I don't know. I don't have Skype. So I don't. And if I start a new account, I don't have your contact information there. I don't know how to find you. So fuck. It sucks because I know Stu probably has.
He had asked me before, 20 minutes. How long is it going to last? I don't know. However you feel comfortable, I told him. But he's like, his English is, he speaks English very good.
Well, I mean, he's in the United States since '89, so he should.
Yeah.
Right? Well, then again, Margarito, apparently, he's been in there his whole life, or most of his life, and he never learned English. Gonzalo, I just wanted to say that I want to touch on a lot of things here, because we haven't even scratched the surface with Librado. I want to ask him more about his sparring. I want to ask him more about the Bute fight, the two Bute fights. The what's his name? Yusuf Mack. His fight against Stiglitz, against Vitaly Tsipko.
I'm sorry, guys. I lost you guys. I'm back.
Don't worry, man.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Sorry. Librado. Mr. BDA want me to ask you if you feel comfortable, a few more minutes. How long? If you got something to do, what's your?
I'm good. A few more minutes. Yeah, we
Well,
good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, whenever
Okay,
you,
or however long you want.
yeah, however long
Yeah.
you want, you just
Okay.
let us know like 10 minutes or 5 minutes before, like, hey guys, I gotta go or whatever, and we'll end it. But because
All
we
right,
have
we're
a,
good. Yeah.
yeah, because we have a lot of questions. I really like this interview. Where did we leave off? Oh yeah, the Butte fight. So you trained like now. That's the other thing I wanted to ask you because walking forward and putting pressure on, I don't think most people know how much stamina it takes. First of all, not only just that type of style, but just in general, boxing. Like we had Jesus Otocaraz a couple of episodes ago, and similar style as yours, coming forward, a lot of punches, a lot of activity. And he said he would train like a madman, especially the road work and all that. So I'm just curious, what was your training regime like? Like for example, on non-sparring days, how many rounds would you go in the heavy bag? How many miles would you run?
Well, now they do a lot of pads. I never did pads.
Huh.
All the beginning of my career, I never did pads. I started doing pads when I went with Howard, and we only used to do 4 rounds, 6 rounds of pads, maybe the most. And it was once a week, 2 times a week. It wasn't much. But when I was coming up, my training was hit the bag, spar, and go run. Nothing else.
Yeah, because I
Yeah,
assume.
I think I'm just gonna mention them real quick because Stu has talked about this too. Like anybody can look good on the pads, right, Librado? The pads,
Right.
the coach can help you catch the shots, make you look like a
Yes.
$1,000,000, but they're kind of overrated. Yeah.
Yes. And the pads, to me, my personal opinion, they make you look good. They give you confidence or whatever it is, however you want to see it, as. But they give you a false sense that they're catching every shot. And when you fight, you miss a lot of shots.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really having a false sense of what is there and what is not there. And that is the reason why when you hit the pad so nice, and you're in a fight, and there's nothing like that when you're fighting, is because when you're fighting, it's so unpredictable. Not all the time your shots are being catched. But
Well, you know what?
everyone's different.
The reason I like the mitts is because I've met two trainers that go, oh fuck, I don't do the mitts, and I'm thinking what? Because I think it depends on the fighter. Like for example, if you're with a guy that's just starting out, I like to do the mitts with them because it's sort of like simulated sparring. You know, there's stages to getting a guy. Some guys, they look good on the bag, then you put them in sparring and they don't know what the hell they're doing. They freeze, they don't know how to move their head, they don't know how to see the punches coming. So mitts, you can do some drills to get them prepared for the sparring. And then in sparring, it's a simulation for the fight. And then once you finally get to the fight, that's the big enchilada, you know? But mitts, it's true. It can also give you that false sense of confidence. Like, you know, when people do those Mayweather drills, where they're not even turning the shoulders on their punch and they're just tap 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 making miss tap 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 shoulder roll. It's like, all right, that's for the cameras, that's for the press and all that. But it's how good is it really? I don't know. I guess it depends, right?
I guarantee you, everybody has a misconception of the Mayweather style and stuff like that. I guarantee you, Mayweather does not train like that.
I agree.
He has a training, and a lot of people think that he trains like that. Now they call it a shoulder roll and stuff like that. It only takes a Mayweather to do the shoulder roll. Anybody that practices that is bound to fail sometime, you know.
Yeah, man.
BDA, can I ask Librado something about the Yusef Mack fight?
Well,
was that before, or are we gonna touch that?
Yeah, can we get to that can we do that in chronological order? Because I want to go.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's after then. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Should we just do it loose format and just ask?
No. I just wanted to say something. No, I just remember what I wanted to ask him regarding this type of style.
Okay. But don't forget though. Don't forget.
Because I know he got clipped on the first round, but then he got up and was able to weather the storm. That type of boxing. But I'll touch on that when you get to it.
Okay. Right. Don't forget the question though. Don't forget the question because it's a good question. All right. So we were talking about the Butte fight, Andrade, and you were talking about the the training that you did. So you were pretty confident in your training for that fight.
Yeah.
And did you feel his shots? Because he had a good left hand.
No, I didn't feel him. I
What?
didn't feel him. I just he has good footwork and he move, and I was always fighters that move around give me a lot of difficulty. Always, even in the sparring, and when they moved a lot like that, I was a little bit off. But when I was fighting Lucian, I did not feel his shot on the first fight. On the second fight, somehow I ran into a hook and I fell, but I think something was wrong before the fight or something because
Well,
I was not on it at all.
You know, Librado, sometimes it's the shot you don't see coming. It's the one that catches you. Well, that's the thing, though, because, I mean, you're blocking shots most of your career, but you must subconsciously, split second, you're seeing them coming. Because, like you said, you learned how to roll your chin with the shot. So I think in a subconscious level, you were seeing most of the shots coming, but it's just that on TV, you're actually getting touched. So it seems like you're not seeing them coming, but you actually were seeing them coming because you were rolling with them and taking them well.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the thing with Bute. With Bute, the fight, the first 6 rounds, it looks good for him because he's landing the left hand, but you're still coming forward. You touch him to the body. By the 8th, 9th round, it starts looking a little bit like it might be the Margarito Cotto fight. It's like the other guy's moving, he's landing more shots, but his opponent is heavier handed. He's landing shots to the body, keeps on coming. Did you feel at any point prior to the last round that he was wilting? Yeah. I thought he was done. I thought Marlon Wright was going to stop the fight 2 rounds prior to that. I never got to the point. He was just on top of us all the time, and he kept interrupting us. And I said, okay, I didn't see it in a way where he was giving him a break. I was seeing it in a way, maybe he's just waiting to stop the fight. No. That's the thing, though, because I was rewatching that last round right before interviewing you here. First of all, like you said, Marlon Wright was right on top of you guys. It seemed like, I don't know, maybe he liked the way you guys smelled or something. I don't know, but he was right on top of you all the time.
Yes.
And then Bute was staggering back. He wasn't just backing up; he was staggering. Like he was done. And there's one point, I think, like 30 seconds before you dropped him, you were in the corner, and you actually had to dip down and pull away from Bute. And at the same time as you're pulling away, your back hit the referee because he was so close to you. It was just it was a ridiculous case of home cooking. And even the Montreal fans that I talked.
Right there, I thought I bumped into him because he ran to stop the fight.
Exactly.
And when I was just like I was confused. I said, "This thing going on still?" And everything was happening so fast.
Yeah, because I was watching that, and from the TV angle, the referee looks towards the opposite corner, and he's telling you, "Don't come out, stay in the corner." But you never popped out of the side of the screen from the TV. You can never really see that you were like not in the corner.
I was never putting Luciano in danger. I was never putting him in danger. I was far away from him being in danger. Far.
And by the way, that's the other thing.
Was to look out for,
You dropped Bute. He goes down. As soon as he goes down, the guy at ringside, he starts counting. And he's supposed to keep counting, right? So normally if the referee, because just to recap to people what happened. Maybe you should tell us because you were actually right there. Like you drop him, what happens?
So he drops and he doesn't start counting right away. So he comes back and he picks up his own count, not the count whatever's supposed to be done by the unofficial one. So he picks up his own count, and when he picks it up, maybe 3 seconds, 3 counts have gone by. He stops at 6. He comes back and turns to me again and says, "Get back to the corner, get back to the corner." He goes back to Lucian. He looks at the unofficial guy that counts, and then he says 6 again, which he had never said. But the guy outside was never counting. And even at this point, I'm looking across the ring, and at this point, I'm going like he's gonna just wave it off. He's gonna look at him and wave it up, right? No. He keeps counting and counting, and then the bell rings, and then he puts his hand up, and I kind of got excited for a little bit, but he was waving that the fight was over because of the last bell, not because the fight was over because I knocked him out. I was like, what did just happen? Wait a second, did I miss something? He never asked him to come out of the corner, and the rule is you have to show that you are able to compete even in the last round.
He was looking at his corner. Yeah, sorry. He was looking at his corner like Meldrick Taylor. He was looking at the corner for an answer and couldn't get it.
Even worse, yeah. And
worse, yes.
And then they all get into the ring and they bring him. They grab him by the hand, and Lucian was still wobbly walking to that corner.
Oh, when the fight ended, he was wobbly.
Yes, even going back to his corner, he was going like this. You could see clearly. And if the referee would have asked him to take a step forward, he wouldn't have been able to. The fight should have.
Well, you know what? They could have stopped it before, because, like I said, there's been cases where guys are hurt in the last round, but they can keep circling. But he was staggering from about a minute before the end of the fight itself. He was already staggering. That's not normal. That is indicative of somebody that's about to get, like, you can get seriously hurt. We were talking about Adonis Stevenson and all that. That's how a guy can get hurt. And it's a miracle, a bit of a miracle that Bute didn't get hurt. But then again, he had a little bit of help, because this is the reality. At that time, Bute was making so much money. It was the A side here in Quebec. And they weren't about to let him lose. There was just too much money. And like you said, Librado, he drops. It's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when the ref comes back, he's supposed to look back at the guy counting and pick up from the count that the guy is giving him, not pick up the count where he left off. So it was about, Gonzalo, what was it, about 15 seconds or more? The total count?
I think like 22.
Jeez. I mean,
22, 24 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, so the fight ends, and Howard, your trainer, Howard Grant, Otis's brother, runs to the referee and shoves him back. But I mean, you're not supposed to do that, but it's understandable in a sense. I mean, the guy they robbed you blind right in front of your face.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys a story of nobody knows about this little story. Okay.
All right.
The night before I supposed to fight Lucia, we went to go get a haircut. This referee, my manager Al Heyman, didn't want this referee because he has seen that he was with Lucian for many fights. He asked Howard, should we change the referee or should we keep the referee? And then he says, no, leave the referee. He's a good referee. But Howard and him, they go way back. They're friends, childhood friends. And I was at this haircut place where they all get their haircuts, the Jamaican people, the Jamaican brothers, they get their haircut done. And I was there with Howard. And this person walks in and he stands there and he looks at me and he shakes my hand. And he says, you know who I am? And I said, no. I'm the referee for your fight in 2 days. He said, okay. Well, nice to meet you. I don't supposed to be here. Goodbye. And he leaves. And Howard turns around because he was getting his haircut. And he says, Librado, you know who that is? That's Marlon. He's been my friend since we were kids and blah, blah. He starts telling me he's so happy. He's like that. He's a good guy. He's going to be your referee. And he leaves. Well, Howard was telling me the story about him and stuff like that. So the story goes that he was supposed to be there and he met me there before the fight. And Howard wanted him to be the referee because they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
That was why Howard got so angry.
Okay.
You did me wrong, man.
Well, I mean, listen, it's even the Showtime commentators. I think it was Al Bernstein and Steve Farhood. They were, I forget which one of those guys, but they were livid. They were livid because It's not.
I still see them from time to time, and they still tell me, "Librado, you should have been a world champion that night." And for us back then, it's not like now there's titles, many titles now, and diamond champion and interim champion, and in a
Titanium
way,
champion.
to become a world champion a little bit easier, because it's more of a business now. But back then, even until then, it was hard to become a world champion. You had to
Yeah.
fight somebody good.
And the interesting thing is there was this guy because I remember when that fight happened and the Bute fight right afterwards. I remember I went. I Bucho, my co-host, he wasn't watching the fight. I forget for which strange reason, but I went to tell him and I told him, "You won't believe what just fucking happened. It's similar to Chavez Meldrick Taylor, but the opposite." And for a long time, people were talking about that on the internet, and some people were saying, defending Bute and saying, "Well, even if the referee would have allowed, kept the count, he still would have rang the bell as soon as the count was over because the time was over still." But that's not the point. The point is,
He didn't do it.
Yeah, the point is he didn't count properly. That's the point. He should, if he would have keeps counting, Bute doesn't get up and he can stop the fight right then. So that was it's one of the worst. So that's my question. That's what I've always wanted to ask you. It's so frustrating when something like that happens. How do you get over it? Like, how do you go back to? Do you use that as fuel, that anger, to keep you going, or like what happens in the subsequent days afterwards?
Well, the fuel lasts me for the next fight. I did elimination back in Montreal against Vitaly Sipko. Vitaly Sipko is the one that really beat up Jeff Lacey in ESPN. That's how everybody knew, and he wasn't that bad. He was pretty good.
Yeah, he was.
I won the elimination fight there in Montreal, and a lot of people came to see me. So I was very honored. Montreal is in my heart. I love that country. I love that place. I love Canada.
Well, you know what I like about what I like about Montreal boxing fans is that Montreal boxing fans are hardcore boxing fans. So I remember, if you put on a good show, they'll respect you, even if you almost beat one of their guys. So if you did beat one of their guys, you've been here a bunch of times. People always want to shake your hand and take photos with you because they respect your boxing style. It's not just tap here, tap there, and stay undefeated. It's like, nah, fuck that. You want to hurt the guy. You want to give people their money's worth, and that's why we respect guys like you. Boxing fans, true boxing fans. We want to see guys like you succeed. So when you get robbed, like what happened against Bute, it's double the pain because it's happening to a guy that we actually respect.
Right. Yeah.
But it's interesting because before we get to that Sipsko fight, you fought. We want to rewind a little bit because Gonzalo also wanted to talk about that fight. After the Kessler fight, you lost that fight by substantially wide margins. You couldn't catch Kessler long because you did catch him with some good shots, but you weren't able to stay consistent with the damage to wear him down.
Right.
After that fight, that's when you switched to Howard and Otis Grant, right, as your trainers?
Yeah.
And why those guys?
I went with them because you know what? I just needed to change. I needed to change everything that I was doing, and I kind of just became numb to whatever I was doing. The same routine: going running, hitting the bag, sparring. Going running, hitting the bag, and sparring. I never moved in front of a bag. I just hit the bag. So I never expected to get this far. I never expected to get as far as I was whenever I was fighting. I never saw myself as a world champion. I never dreamed of world titles or stuff like that. It was all fight to fight, and it just kept materializing because of all the hard work that I would do. I could take a lot. I could take a lot of punishment, and that was my strength. So when I went go train with Howard, just so I can see something different. Because they trained to beat me with Otis. So I said, you know what? Maybe there's some mistakes I don't even see. So that was my logic on it. So maybe they can help me with something.
Right, because they're smart guys, man. Here in Montreal, their gym, the Grant Boxing Gym, they produce some fantastic amateurs. I mean, most of the guys that they train as amateurs are good fundamentals. They're quick. Like whatever style they have, they know how to adapt to it. So they're very cerebral when it comes to the craft of boxing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So you started training with the Grants. So I assumed they trained over there in the United States. So you went over here, or like how did that work?
No, I went to Montreal, and I went to on the winter. It was horrible. The first day I said, this is not bad. This is not bad. The second day, not bad. Oh, by the third week, I was like, holy shit, this is bad.
Believe me, nobody gets used to it.
Yeah, this is too much snow. Sometimes you don't see the sun for, I don't know, for a month. It depresses you.
All right, so you started
very good.
Straight training with the Grants. Now you get a taste of the true North once you're here in Montreal. After the Kessler fight, you fought Ted Muller, but I've never seen that fight, so I don't know what happened there. But then you took on Yusef Mack, and I think that was on the undercard of Barrera Pacquiao too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I actually didn't supposed to fight Ted Muller. I fought Ted Muller. They just brought him in the same day, actually. I was supposed to fight another guy, I think Ross Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Boss or something like that. It was a boxer or something like that. But
he's the guy that I think he fought Fernando. Isn't Ross Thompson the guy that fought Vargas back in 2000, I think? Vargas spit on him?
So. Yeah.
Anyway, so he
was supposed to fight. He trained for the fight. I trained for the fight or whatever it was. But I didn't supposed to fight him.
Okay.
And they just bring him in because this guy didn't pass something. I don't know what happened.
Okay. That was
so
okay.
They just brought him. Yeah.
So that was your comeback fight, and then you took on Yusef Mack on the undercard of. I can confirm. Yeah, it was. I think it was on the undercard of Barrera Pacquiao, the rematch. So it's a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
It's a pay-per-view fight. You got yourself some exposure, and like Gonzalo was gonna say about Yusef Mack, very slippery style. He worked on that shoulder roll a lot. He was actually pretty good at it, and he was heavy-handed to top it all off. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy had power.
Yeah.
Gonzalo, you want to talk about that fight?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think this was like Yusef Mack redemption fight. He only had lost one time. The guys from I think Philly fighter, and like all the great commentators were there. Jim Lampley, Larry Merchant, and what's the other guy? Emmanuel Stewart.
Yeah.
So they were commentating, and I don't know. I don't think the referee was doing a good job in that fight either. Luckily, I mean, good thing you were able to knock him out because before the fight started, he was like, Jane 80 was like, protect your glove at all time. He didn't say protect you. He's like telling himself like, I'm fucking this up already. Protect your glove at all time. And then Emmanuel Stewart, he's like, he wasn't boxing expert. And he goes, well, I don't think this is going to be a good fight because of style matchups. And then Larry Merchant is saying, oh, well, he proved us wrong, right? And like, they're kind of contradicting themselves like the old guys do. Anyway, so I thought it was like just like a really classic fight. And it was really like those times were the HBO after dark. No. So the fight's going. And to me, like BDA was talking about that Yusef Mack had power. But I mean, you were able to like withstand and take everything that Mikhail Kessler threw at you. And he didn't even dent you, I mean, in the fight. But so, like, this guy, maybe not as powerful as him, but, fast, good fighter. And, like, I just wanted to, like, gauge the difference between the powers. How did he hit you in that first round that you were able to go, like, you got down, but you were able to get up compared to, like, the heavy thudding shots of Kessler?
Well, when I fought Kessler, it was straight up. All the shots were straight up. 1-2, 1-2, hook, 1-2, 1-2, hook, and I could see all those shots. I could predict them. So I was well in my feet. With Yusef Mack, I backed up. I went inside, and then I took my head straight back. And as I was stepping back, he got me right on the button with one of my feet in the air as I was stepping back, and he hit me right on top of the head. And I did not get hurt or anything, but I just went blank. And when I opened my night, and the flash, I was on the floor. I said, "Holy shit!" And then I feel warm. My whole body was very warm. Like if something very heavy came on top of me, and I couldn't hold it like that.
Damn.
So I thought
Yeah.
I was just fine. But it was because he got me on one foot as I was stepping out. I was stepping out right back. I went in
Okay.
and hit me.
And
And
by
in
the way,
kill Kessler, at no time that happened. I kept coming forward with the kill.
And it
before
seemed
we
like
continue,
the referee just. I'm sorry. The referee was against you in that fight too, Jane 80, because he was warning you for like things that he wasn't supposed to. Like you
Yeah,
said, Mac was clinching you, but then he was telling you, and like
yeah.
the commentator was saying that. But anyways, did he hurt you again, like in the fifth round?
Not Joseph. No, not Joseph.
Okay.
and by the way,
Yeah. But what happened with Joseph was that he just saw I was such an easy target, and he just got confident. He thought he could hurt me because he hurt me in the first round, and he just gassed out, and he
but
made a mistake like that. He should
by
have
the
stayed
way,
boxing.
Yeah.
before we continue, real quick, because we've been asking a lot of questions. We got Stu on the line. He's another one of our panelists from England, and he's been itching to get in here. So, Stu, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, man.
All right.
Good to be back. Good to be back. Good to have Andrade on the show. I've been I've been watching Andrade for many years now. I mean, he's got some very good wins. I mean, the Robert Stieglitz win, that is a very underrated win. Stieglitz went on to become a very good champion, a very tough guy as well. And I thought he was totally robbed against Lucian Bute. I remember watching that fight. That's the only. I've never liked Bute after that.
Oh,
When he robbed Andrade, I just didn't like Lucian Bute after that. And I was quite happy to see Carl Froch destroy him on my TV that night. I mean, I thought Bute, it was disgraceful. That's how bad that was. That wasn't just to say someone got it wrong on the night. That was a disgraceful bit of refereeing, and never been a fan of Bute after that. But when you see I heard Andrade talk about Mikhail Kessler being his toughest fight. Well, funny, Carl Froch said exactly the same thing, and so did Joe Calzaghe. Joe Calzaghe fought Mikhail Kessler around that time, and Mikhail Kessler was a specimen, a very strong guy. He was knocking everyone out. I mean, this guy went 24 rounds with Carl Froch and beat him in one of them. I mean, this guy, a very tough guy. Like I said, when Joe Calzaghe says that's the best guy he's ever fought, then you have to take notice. And yeah, glad to
Yeah.
have you on the show, my brother.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you, my friend.
well, you know,
And like I said,
Librado.
I've been watching your career for a while now, and because I'm a big boxing fan, I don't just watch the Anthony Joshuas like some of you might think. I actually watch all fighters from all over the world, and I've like I said, I've been invested in your career for a while now, especially after Lucian Bute did that. Especially after Lucian Bute did that disgraceful act on you. I'll just say,
Right.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you know what? Staying in tune with that, the whole thing about the referee, that a lot of people gave him flack for it, but he still kept getting high-profile fights here in Montreal. Marlon B. Right? He's passed away since. Well, I mean, not right away, but that he passed away a couple of years ago from a pretty aggressive form of cancer. So that chapter is closed. I mean, we can't talk to the guy anymore to ask him about what happened. But he never admitted that he did anything wrong. I think maybe I'm wrong about it, but I don't think he never admitted.
He did admit it after the fight, but then he changed it. Then he said no. He said no. I didn't cost him the fight. Librado cost himself the fight, which means that he cost himself the fight. But I was never I was never putting Lucian Bute when he was down in danger. He was the one putting Lucian Bute in danger and not stopping the fight correctly.
That's right.
See, I think that that fight that you had with Bute actually it destroyed Bute's confidence. He never looked the same. He never looked the same man after that. And you could see when he went in with Froch, he was like a rabbit in headlights. He was scared, and every time he got hit, something was happening. And that confident Lucien Boutte, that everyone thought was the best guy in the division, ahead of Ward, ahead of Kessler, ahead of Froch. Everyone was saying Boutte, yeah, he didn't enter the tournament. But I think that fight with you, I thought it sort of exposed Lucien Boutte, and I believe that's why Carl Froch fancied that fight.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But Boutte was good. Don't get it twisted. The guy was pretty slow.
Boutte was good, but his confidence was shot, bro. When you get hurt like that, when you're this, everyone was bigging this guy Boutte up to be the best in the division. They were saying he'd go through Ward and everyone. He's the best. And when he got hurt like that and exposed, he needed terrible refereeing to save him on the night. And
Right.
I think after that, he just wasn't the same fighter. Wasn't as confident. Yes, he's still a good fighter. He's a world-class fighter. But I just think his confidence was shot to pieces after that. And that's why Froch went through him like a doorway.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I believe you. Yeah.
And by the way, we got Johnny Boy on the hangout too. Johnny Boy, you there?
Yeah, what up, bro?
Hey, what's up, man? Good to have
Hey,
you on
what's
board.
up, man?
Johnny Boy, you got any questions for? You got any questions for Librado or?
No, I'm driving. If I got a question, I'll ask him later. But I'm just listening right now, BDA. Thank you, though.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, we don't want you
Can I
crashing.
ask one more question? Can I ask one more question? I just want his opinion. I just want his opinion on Callum Smith. What he thinks of Callum Smith.
Callum Smith, I'm not familiar with him.
Callum Smith is the number one guy in the super middleweight division. He's the Diamond WBC champion, I think, and he's the Ring Magazine champion. And he's a guy from the UK, very dangerous. Knocked out George Groves and knocked out the Fielding, the guy Canelo just fought. He knocked out Fielding a lot quicker than Canelo did. A very, very good fighter, but doesn't have a resume right now. And I was just wondering if you knew anything about him, but obviously
I haven't seen anything of him.
Canelo wants to fight him next. I think he's one of the options, Canelo, and I think that'd be a very good fight. I think he'll give Canelo a lot of problems. He's a big guy, 6'3" at super middleweight, 6'3", and he has really good.
I doubt he'll fight him though. I doubt Canelo will take that fight.
Yeah, it's a dangerous fight. This guy has serious power. I mean, he starched George Groves. And, I think it's a hard fight for Canelo. But I actually believe Canelo Alvarez is a special talent. I think he is one of the best fighters in the world. Yes, he has things go his way. But, you can't take away the talent that this kid's got, no matter what he's done.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
And by the way...
I was going to ask you...
Yeah, go ahead. I'll be right back, all right? Take over, Gonzalo, for a couple of minutes, please. All right?
Okay.
All right, thanks, man.
I was going to ask you, Librado, okay, for example, like now that you're retired, so you used to train for 168, you make the weight, no? And then how much did you used to come into the fights weighing, like the day of the fight?
185.
185 rehydrated.
Yep, 185.
And what's your walk around weight now that you retired? Like a normal human being, not training or anything. For your 6'2" frame, because you're 6'2" feet tall, no?
Yeah, 200. I cannot get lower than 190. I keep trying. It's just so hard for me now. Yeah, so in between 190 and 200, but as of now, it's 200.
Yeah, because many people think like, oh, like boxers, they're kind of smaller, but they're actually like, even if we start off with let's just welterweights or lightweights, 140, 147, they're actually men that if they weren't boxing or training, they probably weigh about 170. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But like a big guy like you, 6'2", and just like a regular person, 200 pounds. Okay, so that means you're pretty big yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You see, with the super middleweight division, obviously being from the UK, I mean, we were spoiled. We had Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, we had Calzaghe. We just had some great super middleweight divisions, and that division is the most popular division in the UK. Probably apart from the heavyweight division, it's a massive division in the UK because we've always done very well in it. And
Right.
it's just, you know, it would have been nice to see you come over and fight one of our boys, you know, in a big arena.
Well, I was very close to going to fight Kasachi. Because I was number one for the WBO for about 2 years, but he never took the fight with me. And the reason
Who
why
was that? Who's that? Sorry, I didn't hear the name. Who didn't
I
take the
was
fight?
Joe Kasachi.
Oh, Joe Calzaghe.
Joe Kasachi, yeah.
What
But
did you?
he never took the fight with me. A couple of times it was talked about, and it never happened. Before Kessler, and one time after Kessler, it just didn't happen. And the other fight that it was talked about, it was against Carl Frog.
Well, that would
And
have been serious war. That would
yeah,
have been
it just didn't happen. And I actually met Carl Frog here in Las Vegas when um, one of the big fights. I met him, and he said to me, if I was gonna fight him, they would have had to pay me a lot of money. I don't care. We're done. You were coming to fight.
The thing with Froch, I actually remember that fight being talked about. You fighting Froch, I remember it because I've followed Froch when no one knew he was. You know, when he was actually quite boring to watch at times, Froch, but he became this exciting fighter because technically he's horrible, but he's tough. He has a chin and a heart of a lion. And the thing is, what would have made it a good fight with you? Cole Froch is so easy to hit. And you like to throw a lot of punches, so it would have been messy. It would have been, but Froch also, comes with power himself. Cole Froch is a serious puncher himself, and you know if you stand square on with Cole Froch in front of you, and if he hits you clean on the chin, you're going to sleep. So he's a very big puncher. And like you said, you're a busy man. That fight would be a war, man. It would be a very good fight. It's a shame it didn't happen because, like I said, you would have gave him a lot better fight than Butte did. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Shame.
Yeah. There's interesting. Yeah, that would have been a war. That they have. There's a middleweight right now. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a really good fighter, but he does. His last name's Andrade, like you, but he doesn't. He doesn't go toe to toe. He's like the back foot. You know, he runs away. You know who that guy is? The champion at 160.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with him, but I've seen him fight in a few fights, and he does have a very awkward style. I don't like his style.
I don't. I don't rate him at all. I just don't rate the guy. I think he's very vulnerable. I watched him v Kolkai, and he every time he got clipped, he got hurt. And the minute this guy goes in with a big puncher that can take a shot as well, he's finished. I'm telling you now, he is.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of him, but he has my last name, or I have his last name, or whatever. Whoever told him.
What do you think? What do you think of Joe Calzaghe? I mean, he was talking about fighting him. What do you actually think of him as a fighter?
He was a master of whatever he was doing. He was just untouchable. Whatever he was doing, you know, everybody has their own thing, and when they can master whatever they have, people have to respect them. And Joe Kasachi knew how to win. He knew how to use his speed, and he knew how to use those angles very well. And he was very hard to hurt, or very hard to stop.
Very good chin, Joe Calzaghe. Threw 1,000 punches. Threw 1,000 punches a fight, and he was the work rate.
And as I understand, he adapted those kind of way of punching because he used to get hurt. His hands used to get hurt all the time.
Yeah, but you know what? You know why? Joe Calzaghe used to have a fight, take his gloves off, and his hand wraps would be unwrapped in his gloves because he used to wrap them himself, but not properly. So he'd take his gloves off, and his hands would be unwrapped. His wraps wouldn't even be together still, and that's how he used to break his hands. So he had to adjust his punching style, and that's why he became a slapper. Did you notice he'd started to slap his punches early on in his career? He was hurting people. He hurt Eubank, didn't he? And he was knocking people out, but he had to start turning his punches into slaps because his hands would damage, and that was all because he wasn't professional enough to get someone to wrap his hands. He was so precise, he had to do it himself, but he didn't know how to do it properly, and that's why his hands used to.
Yeah.
So, tremendous fight though. Tremendous fight. The best, I'd say Joe Calzaghe and Lennox Lewis, the best two fights to come out of the UK, without a shadow of a doubt.
Hey, I got a question, Librado.
I can agree with you.
Librado, I got a question for you because you used to hit guys all over the place, elbows, body, like any. You didn't wait for the perfect shot. You would just let your hands go and wear guys out. Did you ever have trouble with your hands, or was there ever a fight where you went, "God damn, my hands hurts"?
Yes, all the time. Not all the time. Not in my later fights, but in my earlier fights, I have my knuckles broken in 2 places. My thumb is broken, and the left hand, the pinky, is broken because of hitting on top of the head or hitting an elbow, hitting anywhere. So they're broken. Yeah. In the beginning, I did have problems, but then Everlast started making the gloves a little bit bigger because before they only used to have one size, and my hands wouldn't fit on the glove. Then I changed to Cleto Reyes, and Cleto Reyes had a little bit more room. I could wrap my hand, or I can make a full fist, and that's how I kind of started getting better.
So I would have assumed that you were a fan of Cleto Reyes because they're considered the puncher's gloves. So did you prefer the Everlast?
The beginning of yours was Everlast.
Okay.
And Everlast used to make only one size. Now they make 3 sizes, which is the small, medium, and extra large, which is very good. And you could fit your hand, and there's a lot of more room on it.
When you're Mexican Everlast, no?
Hang on a sec, Gonzalo. BDA, which is the gloves that Madonna used to use? Puncher's gloves.
Everlast.
Yeah, right. Everlast.
He wanted the Everlast because Everlast they came up with the Everlast puncher's glove, which is sort of like the Cleto Reyes one, and that's the one he wanted to use again. Yeah, those are the ones he wanted to use against Mayweather the first fight, but they made him use another brand of Everlast. But speaking of fighting, Librado, I wanted to ask you too because we were talking about your style, and the reason why people respect you so much and always wanted to see you fight is because you brought it. Now, when you fought Vitaly Tipsko, I don't know how you say his last name, but when you fought him in Montreal, you dropped him twice. You never stopped coming forward. And one of the things that I've noticed watching you fight, especially as I was rewatching that fight, is you would throw 1-2 and almost always left hook, and then you would follow it up with 2 more shots. So it was never 1-2-3, 1-2. It was always 1-2-3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that something that you always had? That was your demeanor, that was your character, even as an amateur?
Yes. No, I started developing that because I started finding out that you only get aware of the first shots, then you don't expect the follow-up. And if you ever find yourself in position, you could be messy at the beginning. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be the footwork has to be done necessary at the beginning. But once you finish the combination and you're well off in your feet and you continue, those are the shots that hurt you.
That's true.
And
because
you don't expect them.
Exactly.
You stop. Yeah.
Some people fight out of rhythm.
Did I hear him say that Yusuf Mack hit him the hardest? Was it Yusuf Mack?
No, the one that hit me the hardest.
Adonis Stevenson in Sparring.
Oh, Adonis Stevenson in Sparring. Yeah.
Well, Tony Bellew to this day, and he's fought a heavyweight. He's fought Usyk, he's fought David Haye, and even he said Adonis Stevenson hit him the hardest out of anyone's ever hit him. I mean, it rocked him to his boots. And did you see? I mean, what did you think of Stevenson's demise against Wozniak? I mean, devastating, wasn't it?
Yes, very, very sad, devastating, very sad. But
it's not good to see. But Wozniak is a serious guy. He's a good fighter. Very good.
They took him lightly, I think, because before the interview, I read something or I heard somebody say, they asked Stevenson about the fight. He says, all I need is one shot. Yeah. And I kind of turned around on him.
I think the fight with Wozniak was too soon after the war with Badu Jack. That Badu Jack fight took a lot out of him. I mean, I actually probably ended him that night. And I thought the Wozniak was just too much for him on the night. And maybe he shouldn't have took that fight. Should have retired before.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. That's a good point. Never thought about that.
No, I know it's in hindsight because this guy's a world champion. He was beating anyone. But when you go back and look at the Badu Jack fight, you could see that he was fading. He was an old man in there in the end, and he was taking a lot of punishment. And you could see that. And when he's 42 years old, he's got nothing else to prove. I think he probably should have called it a day that night, because this Vosnik guy, these Eastern European guys, they're not messing around. Some of these guys are dangerous guys, and if you're past your best and you're getting in the ring with some of them, then you could get hurt. So I just think it was like I said, it's in hindsight, but the Badu Jack fight.
Go ahead, Gonzalo.
Just a reminder to or I should ask Librado, how much time he have left, a few more minutes or how much longer?
I'll let you guys know. Yeah.
All right,
thanks.
fantastic. Yeah. By the way, speaking of Eastern European fighters, I wanted to go back. Thank you, Gonzalo. I wanted to go back to that Zipsko fight, because he gave Jeff Lacey two very tough. I think one of them ended in a no contest. I forget for what reason, but the second fight, it was a good fight. Zipsko had about, I think, 130 amateur fights. He was a good fighter, southpaw, good mover. Did having fought Bute and Kessler pay dividends once you took on a guy like that, like a guy that now you knew really more how to fight a guy that kept moving all the time?
Yeah. Well, the thing with me was that even though I was a right-handed fighter, I always had a weird style. I threw my shots from weird angles.
I saw that. I was gonna ask you if you were left-handed too.
No. What was is just I would get hurt in the gym, and I would just find a way to throw the shots. We would never stop sparring, so I would develop some bad habits, but at the same time, good habits. So I could deal with pain at the same time that I could throw shots, and the shots were from different angles, weird places that usually people don't expect, and that was my strength. So when they fought in front of me, they were coming from weird angles, just like people get hurt with Triple G. Triple G throws the top of the head, throw some hooks really weird. Because we're so accustomed to seeing the shots straight,
I was just gonna ask you that really fast, because when sometimes you would cross your feet because you're always coming forward, you could use your left hand as a jab and throw your right handed as your power shot, right from that weird angle as a hook. And I saw that, and I was thinking Triple G too, because when he fought that other guy from Canada, Steve Rose, when he pressured him to the corner, instead of reshuffling his feet to get in position, he just used, his as a left-hander the left hand as a power punch.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of putting his feet in position again, he just saved himself that extra second or two or to get into position. In other words, to throw the shot, he just kind of took the lead, and the other is a trail hand.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? What was the style that you struggled with the most? Was it the back foot slick fight, or was it the come forward brawler? I mean, which style did you not prefer to fight, sort of thing?
The moving, the style that Kessler presented, the style that Lucian Bute presented, and I know the style that Joe Kasachu would have had. It was very difficult for me. For me.
That Joe Calzaghe fight, I mean, that would have been very difficult for you. I mean, I don't like to disrespect you, because he was a great fighter, but that would have been a very difficult fight for you. But just style-wise, this guy was horrible for everyone.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I would have accepted the fight, because at that time I would have taken the money or whatever it was.
Yeah, of course.
But if I got a preference of fighting, I wouldn't have wanted to fight somebody that would move so much. I would rather fight somebody that stayed there and fought with me.
Exactly, of course. And that's why Froch would have been a lot closer. That would have been a much better fight. But I've always come on here and said about fighters can have all the talent in the world, all the skills, but you've got to have something inside as well. You've got to have the heart, and you've got to be tough. You've got to be strong. And I think with your style, you sort of find out the guys that are not ready for that sort of level. Do you know what I mean? With Bute, I mean, Bute, after that beating, he's always looked soft since, hasn't he? He's just lost his aura. And I think that's the sort of, with your style, I think your style is the sort of style that if you're not ready and if you haven't got it deep down in your heart, then you'll get found out very quickly. And I think that's what the style did. And that's why, like I said, Butte, I said before, was never the same fighter after that.
Yeah. Look, this is what happens. One time I did a marathon without training. I just running. I love running. I still love running. I run a lot still. But I went running and did a marathon. And the 15th mile, my legs were cramping up. I did not stop. I didn't care. I finished the race. But when I finished, I could not walk to the parking lot. I was in such pain. I do not even dread to even think about running a marathon again because I know how painful it is. I think this is what happens with fighters. When you are taken to a place that you're not used to or you never expected, you don't want to go back there. You don't want to go back there. You don't want to experience that anymore.
I think you totally. I've been preaching this forever, and I think that's what happened with Anthony Joshua the other night.
Yeah.
If you saw Anthony Joshua, he went in there, he got hurt, he kept getting hurt, had no answers, and like I said, you really found out what he was about. He didn't want to be there on the night, and I think that's where you find the true warriors of the sport and the fakers. Let's be real. Anthony Joshua is a superb talent, but it's more than talent in boxing. You've got to have it within, and I just don't think he proved to me that night. I just don't think he's a fighter. He's a manufactured fighter. He's not a born fighter.
Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Andrade?
Yeah, go ahead, Revolucion. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
And also, hey, how's it going, everybody? I just jumped on. I'm at work again, as always. Just jumping in with a couple questions.
Don't get fired, man.
Get or not, I wasn't really listening to the show up till now. Mr. Andrade, well, I heard when I jumped on, you were talking about the injuries that you've got on your hands throughout the years of boxing. Like, what other kind of injuries do boxers struggle with that maybe people don't think about? Like, for instance, I got, like, my ankles are really bad. I have, like, a lot of sprains on my ankles. So anything I do athletically, I'm really hesitant. Is there anything like that other kind of injuries other than hands?
I heard about the knees. I heard that sometimes fighters, they hurt their knees. I never had injuries like that. Usually it's always the hands, the elbows. I've never heard somebody complain about the jaw. Somebody breaks the jaw and then they come back with a stronger jaw, So I think mostly it's the hands.
See, the problem with the joints, I think the road works. I've always been one for saying that I don't think road works is good for fighters' longevity.
It's the best.
It's the best for fitness, but it's terrible on the joints. And I think this is. I mean, if you look at Deontay Wilder, he doesn't do road works. He'll only do the treadmill, and I think that's because he's got skinny legs and them joints. That puts a lot of pressure on the joints when you do road works, and you will know that yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, for me, I used to do a lot of running in the street, a lot, and it does take a toll in your body, the running in the street.
It's actually the most damaging exercise a boxer can do, and that includes sparring. Because and that's why I think with the way science has moved forward, I think there's a way forward without doing the road works, and it's going to be better for your longevity and your fitness. Do you know what I mean? I know it's good for your stamina, road works, but I just like I said, if it's all good having a good tank, but if you can't fucking move because your joints are seized up, it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, BDA, can I ask him a question real quick? Because I only got a few minutes, bro.
Go ahead.
How you doing, Mr. Andrade? How you doing?
Great, thank you.
Yeah. God bless. God bless.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I think I asked Soto Cara this too, but you think Pacquiao got enough left to beat Thurman?
I think he does. You can't ever count him out because the way he performs, and he's been winning what he did with Broner. But of course, Broner never shows up. You always expect the best Broner to show up. They keep coming up with excuse. He's the biggest talent, but he keeps falling short. but I think Pacquiao has a good chance against Thurman.
All right. Thank you, Thank you, brother. God bless.
Same to you.
Librado.
And can I get one more in, and then I'm gonna jump off. I'm at work, so I just one
All
more,
right.
and then I'm out. Okay. So Andrade, are there any fighters that you know of that maybe not a whole lot of people have heard of, and maybe should go and watch their fights? Maybe some really underrated people that you could share with us.
Well, Antonio DeMarco. I don't know how he's gonna do tonight, but this kid is really good. We only saw him. Well, we saw him against
Broner.
Edwin Valero, and he got beat. But he is a little bit better than what he looked against Edwin Valero. So he's fighting tonight. Check him out. He's fighting on Fox Sports.
DeMarco was a very good talent before he fought Broner, but for some reason, I mean, that night he made Broner look like a superstar, and I've never been a fan of Broner. I just don't rate him that highly. But Broner did a right number on DeMarco, and DeMarco was a very dangerous guy at the time. I mean, I'm not sure the ins and outs of that, but I think that set his career back quite a lot. To be honest with you, I mean, it was a devastating defeat.
Yeah, and hopefully, well, he looked really good against Omar Figueroa, DeMarco, and well, one little fact about me is that I kind of work for PBC, so I get to see all these new fighters. I get to see all the superstars that are now going on. So I get
Who's the guy?
In the first row.
Who's the guy that you see as the best talent in the PBC?
On the PBC, I think Wilder. Wilder's going to be the big name.
You think Wilder? Yeah.
Yeah, Wilder. Yeah, Wilder, and of course Errol Spence.
Yeah, I mean, with Wilder, I mean, technically, you'll know he's not very good technically, but he has that equalizer, and when that lands, devastation comes afterwards. So yeah, he's a devastating puncher, that's for sure. But I think we saw his weaknesses against Tyson Fury. I mean, Tyson Fury was nowhere near his best, and I think for long periods of that fight, he was getting totally outboxed. But like I said, his power nearly bailed him out again.
Yeah. And all they really got to do is if he can take those belts off Ruiz, if he gets the chance, he's undisputed. That's it.
I think he knocks out Ruiz quicker. Not Ruiz. Ortiz. I think he knocks out Ortiz quicker this time.
Hey, by the way, I want to just you mentioned also the fights that fighters that most people have never heard of. You know, let's mention Julio Gonzalez too, because he might not have been the greatest, but when it comes to action, he just like you, he brought it all the time. So I would suggest people to check out that Julian Letterlow fight because that's one of the best. If it wasn't for Mickey Ward versus Emmanuel Burton, I think that was 2000. Yeah, I think that's the fight that beat. If it wasn't for that fight, Gonzalez versus Letterlow would have been the fight of the year because I mean that was just a back and forth slugfest. It was tremendous.
Yeah, it was ESPN fight of the year.
Oh, it was ESPN fight of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually,
ESPN, yeah.
Okay. Well, now it's interesting though because I wanted to mention something real quick about the Vitaly Tsipsko fight because I was rewatching that fight again right before you came on. You tried to take the motherfucker out in the 12th round. You dropped him two times before. You had him beat up, and you still were going for the kill. And afterwards, the fight ends, and you know you were clinching just as the bell sounded, and then you hugged him. When a guy takes a beating like that from you, and you really did try your best to stop him, do you respect this guy more than ever and anybody else ever will? Or like, what goes on through your head when you beat up a guy like that and he's still standing?
Well, I was like, we beat the crap out of each other for 12 rounds for whatever time, and we have nothing against each other. You know, I wish him well with his life and afterlife and whatever he's doing. I feel just thankful for being there and being that person that made that fight with me. You know, and It's for fighters. Sometimes we don't realize and we take for granted that how personal it is fighting each other. You know, we're literally putting our lives at risk. Like he could take my life, I could take his life.
Yeah, that's true. And do you know the funny thing about it is, it's usually that the fighters that are close friends that have the best wars. I mean, because Carl Froch and Kessler were very good friends. Look at the wars they had. I mean, you probably wouldn't know these guys. I mean, Matthew Macklin when he fought Jamie Moore. I mean, them two were best friends, and it was one of the best wars you'll ever see. So sometimes the guys that actually get on, go out there and just put it all on the line. A lot of this fake beef and this animosity, they talk a good game in the build-up, and then when it gets to the action, nothing. So, you know, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, because I still talk to Lucien Bute. We still FaceTime each other, type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Bute, like I said, Bute was.
Hold on. Andrade, Librado, your microphone. We can't hear you, Librado. I think your microphone is. Did somebody mute him or?
No, I think it's just his internet cut out a little bit. That's all. There's nothing wrong with his mic.
Okay.
Maybe went off.
Now we hear you. Now we hear you. Yeah, okay. Now we hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Because Mikhail Kessler, I mean, he's actually half English. His mother's English.
Hold on, Stu. I just want to reestablish connect. Librado, can you hear us?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I think something. I don't know if it was your. I don't know if you had a microphone in your earphones or something, but we couldn't hear you at some point.
Yeah, I think they ran out of battery, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, Stu brought up the good point about sometimes the animosity between fighters is fake, and you were saying something to that effect as well. You were gonna say something about that, I think.
Yeah, like me and Lucien, we're really good friends. I feel he's like a brother, like it's funny because sometimes we don't realize how much we put in, so much work to fight each other, so much energy we put to beat up each other or to win against each other, and sometimes the fights, they live on for more than our careers. Lucien Bute against me will be watched, I don't know, 20 years down the line. I don't know. In a way, we marry each other. We marry each other that way, and we'll always be, our names will be together in that way.
So that's true, because the thing is, when Bute was coming through as a big star, your name was always next to it, because whenever people say, well, Bute's the best, well, everyone was saying, well, Andrade should have beat him. He got robbed, and your name was always connected with Bute, and that's good. That's good. That's good to hear that you're good friends. And if Bute has got, if he is a real good friend, then he probably has admitted to you already that he got lucky in the first fight. He must have.
He doesn't admit.
He doesn't admit that. That's probably that is the most disgraceful refereeing I've seen in many decades, and he won't admit it.
Stu likes to.
He's never actually verbally said it. You won that night. But
you know what you need to do?
They give him shit for that,
you need to get Bute drunk so he admits it, and then you get him drunk and have a tape recorder so that when he says that he'll admit it, and you'll have it forever.
That would be funny, yeah.
I couldn't believe people were picking him to school Carl Froch. I mean,
come on, you knew Carl Froch, man. Stu always brings it back to the UK. Come on.
Come on, man. People actually. Froch was a massive underdog in that fight with Bute. He was a massive underdog. People thought Bute. Even the British commentators were saying Bute's going to come here and beat the shit out of Carl Froch, and I was actually starting to believe it. But I think with Bute, I think he couldn't hurt Froch. But when Froch was replying, he was doing all sorts of damage, and it was just a terrible style for Bute. And like I said, I think when you see the Andrade fight, I knew it would be a terrible style because Andrade brings that sort of pressure, big punching power, and he couldn't cope that night either. So, Bute is a very good fighter. I just don't. I think when you put it on Bute, I think he falls apart, and I think that's why.
Well, you know what, Stu? Stu, you know what? I can give you some insight into the build-up to the Bute Carl Froch fight, because over here in Canada, before that fight, you got to remember Carl Froch had just lost to Andre Ward.
Yeah,
and a lot of people over here were saying, "Oh, Bute is going to school him." Well, not everybody. The people that really knew who Carl Froch was, they were giving him a shot. But there were a lot of people, casual boxing fans. They were only familiar with Bute. So some of those guys were like, "Oh yeah, Bute is going to school him." And I'm thinking, have you ever seen Carl Froch fight? Like, have you seen him go to war against Pascal and against Kessler and against Jermaine Taylor? It's like it seems like they'd never seen him fight. But you know what the problem with Bute was? He was so used to countering with one shot and then getting out of the way. But what Froch did, he was willing to take that one shot, and he just kept coming. But what happened was he caught him early on, and he never let go. And Bute wasn't.
I think Jim Watt, the commentator that night, described it perfectly. Carl Froch was walking through Bute's shots to get his own off because he knew Bute could hurt him. But and it was a terrible beating. Let's be real. It was a real bad beating. And that's the sort of guy Carl Froch is. If you're going to fight Carl Froch, you better come with some footwork. You better come with some slick movement. You better be like Andre Ward. Otherwise, you're going to be in a horrible war for 12 rounds.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, fighters like Carl Froch, you have to hurt them. You have to go in there and actually have some power to really take him out of whatever he's trying to do or whatever he's willing to take, because he's gonna take it. He's gonna be there to fight. All it is
to the end.
Yeah,
He stopped
power. Yeah.
And he stopped Jermaine Taylor with about 6 seconds to go. He was behind on the cards. This guy is dangerous for 12 rounds. Look what he did to George Groves. Like Andrade said, you have to hurt this guy to trouble him. And with the Groves one fight, Groves hurt him badly in the first one. And that's why he sort of should have won the fight. He got robbed a little bit, didn't he, Groves? But in the second fight, Carl Froch made adjustments, and it was a devastating KO. Carl Froch was a real hard fight for anyone. He actually retired Mikhail Kessler. Kessler didn't want to fight no more after that.
Hey, you know what?
I think he got some bad eyes after that. Those fights.
Well, that was the Andre Ward headbutt. The Andre Ward headbutts that did that.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I wanted to ask you too, because Stu brought up the Robert Stieglitz fight that you had with him, and again, underrated win, and it was a fantastic performance. One of the most good offensive displays of body work and just up and down and working both sides of the body. It was just a beautiful display of boxing. And one of the things I like is watching because Bernard Hopkins was in the background. You can see him in the crowd watching the fight on the HBO telecast, and he's with his trainer Nassim Richardson, and they're watching you beating the crap out of Robert Stieglitz, and they're going ooh ah. And I'm thinking, when other fellow boxers or boxing people are impressed with your performance, that's when you know you're putting on some good work. But the Stieglitz fight, again, good technical boxer, but compared to Kessler and Bute, was he just too light hitting to keep you off of him?
Yes, and he was predictable. I could tell what he was gonna throw. I could read whatever he was gonna throw. Yeah,
typical German style.
I knew he was gonna. He had a very straight right hand, and if you give me a straight right hand, I'm gonna find a way. Even if I have to take that shot a couple of times, I'll take it. But I'll figure out a way where I can time that right hand and counter you with something, an uppercut or a hook or another right hand, and I figured that with him. So he threw the right hand, and all I just had to block that right hand and come over with a hook, and that's how I ended up hurting him. And I did hurt him to the ribs, because after the fight he had bruised ribs. But what I really hurt him with was with a hook, with that hook in the head.
Yeah, after every round, he would go back to his corner, and he would look like he was getting tortured or something. He was every round, subsequent round, he was bleeding more and more. It was a beating. Now, my thing is, in terms of your technique, most guys who aren't offensive minded, they will throw one. Let's say they go to the body, right? So they'll throw the jab, step in with the right hand, and then position themselves to the hook to the body, and then they'll step back out with the jab and reset. You did the classic Mexican. It's not just the Mexicans that do it, but it's mostly the Mexicans that do it. 1-2, left hook to the body, left uppercut down the middle, and then you would finish with the right hand and a left hook. we go back to that same thing of you always following up with more shots. Is that something that you think you have to have the character to do that? Because if you're throwing 6-7 shots in front of a guy, you might get hit in between. So do you have to go in there knowing that you might get hit and accepting that? Or?
All of the other shots are kind of athletic to make, and the 1-2 to the body, uppercut, and then uppercut with the same hand, left hand, and then to the right down the line. It's kind of really what your body's taking you to do. If you go in the back and you practice 1-2, by the time you throw that 2, it kind of leaves you. If you commit a little bit, leaves you hanging for the body shot. You just come up with a body shot, and then once you are in the body shot, you just come up with an uppercut, and it's there. So it's kind of something like the body takes you to. So you don't have to do no athletic movements, nothing like Mayweather, where he goes with the right to the body, and then he makes some athletic move, and hits you with the right in the other ear. I don't know. But
do you think as a Mexican, sometimes like you actually dragged into wars you don't need to be in just to keep the Mexican reputation up, because it's that Mexican style, you go in there and you give it your all, but sometimes you don't need to be putting it on the line. You could get behind your jab and make things a lot easier for you. Do you think just that Mexican tag where Mexicans expect their fighters to go in there and put on a show, do you think that's actually cost a lot of Mexican fighters in big fights?
It has, but I think they get wrapped up into the Mexican style thing as they keep evolving into fighters. Exactly. But there is nobody to teach them otherwise. There is nobody to take them out of that. That's what it is. Now they're changing a little because there's more to see and to compare from. But
See, I've noticed a lot of Mexicans coming through. They're not just brawlers anymore. These guys have got good footwork. They're counter punchers. They can avoid shots. I mean, Canelo's a special type for a start. I mean, I like Valdez, Oscar Valdez. I think he's a talent. Some of these Mexican guys coming through are boxers. They're not just brawlers anymore. And when I was younger, Mexicans were just they were. I mean, I was brought up with Barrera Morales, so these guys, they could box, but they just brawled just to put it on for the fighters. They could get behind the jab, but they never did. And it was just a Mexican way, weren't it, to get in there and put it all on the line. But sometimes, you have to get behind the jab and make it look boring, like Floyd did sometimes,
Right. And I think fighters are evolving into that now, but before, this is all they know. And now they get wrapped up into, okay, this is the Mexican style, this is the way it should be, so this is what we do. But it's not, it's just really what they get wrapped up in. And they just go like that because not a lot of people can take a shot. And it does not necessarily mean, because you're Mexican, you can take a shot. No. It's just the way we just grow up and mentally.
I think a lot of people think it's because you're Mexican you can take a shot. Now, what it is because when you're Mexican, you're actually turning professional at 15 years old. So you're learning to hold shots off grown men very early, and you're learning to see the shots coming. You learn that through and once you see a shot coming, you can hold it a little bit better, And I think with the Mexicans, because they're starting so young as young boys, and they're fighting grown men and taking big shots from an early age. I think that really helps them with the. I don't think it's this special gene that Mexicans have that makes them so tough. I think it's just it's the start.
You've grown up,
Like Gonzalo.
Can I add something to that? It might be a little controversial, but it's the truth. It's no particular gene. Just keep giving credits to fighters from all over the world. I think Mexicans are really good fighters because it's like the supply and demand. Look, I was listening to this documentary about the cartels. Why are the cartels the biggest drug dealers in the world? Oh, because the United States is right next to Mexico. So when a hungry Mexican is a teenager and he develops himself, like they're evolving, like Librado says, they started very rudimentary, pressure, but now they're kind of changing it up. Okay, they've always been good, but they got the hunger because the market is maybe in North America. So, with time, the supply and demand is created, hasn't given the fighters more, it's like it's not an option to them to quit. They want to make it. You learn fighting tough, and then you evolve into being really good.
Gonzalo, it's a culture thing because you'll get a lot of American fighters that live in some of the worst ghettos around, some of the toughest neighborhoods. Yeah, stick them in a boxing ring and they're fucking useless.
I was talking to one of the fighters. I'm sorry I interrupt, but I was talking to one of the fighters, and his name is Omar Figueroa. Figueroa, he comes to fight. He doesn't care if he gets hit. I don't know if you guys have seen him.
Yeah, he fought Ricky Burns. He fought Ricky Burns from the UK and had a war with him. Can you remember that?
Yeah. He comes to fight, and he doesn't care if he gets hit 100 times. He tells me, he says, you know what? There's other things in life that I've experienced outside that are worse than being here. When I am here in the ring and I'm getting hit and I'm experiencing all this, it's a lot better than what it is out there. For a minute, I forget about that all over. And I think that's what it is with Mexicans. Our culture is, you know what? I'd rather take a beating for 10 rounds or a beating for 12 rounds than go back to the reality of living in poverty with Mexico. Maybe it's not going to cure the rest of my life, but for the next month, I'm going to be okay.
Well, you know what?
I don't think it's anything to do with poverty or for neighborhoods.
Whatever's going on in their lives, you know.
I don't believe it. I think it's just a culture thing where Mexicans are expected to put it on the line. I mean, you only got to see what happened to Victor Ortiz when he quit. I mean, the guy. I mean,
burned him. Yeah.
It's not acceptable. It's just a culture thing. It's not acceptable. And Mexicans will not sit there and accept someone pop shotting their way to a points win on the back foot against a guy that is miles better than.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because go ahead, Gonzalo. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we're talking about this. Stu was saying there's this Japanese fighter Librado is fighting. They called him El Mexicanito. Tomoki Kamira. He's fighting Dre Vargas from Motumba. And he was brought to Mexico when he was 15 to learn the style and incorporate it into his Japanese. And he speaks Spanish. I just thought that was really interesting.
I met him. I met him before. He's a cool guy.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole community.
The Japanese are like the Mexicans. They're expected to put it all on the line and be tough and go to war. The Japs expect that. And when you watch a lot of the Japanese fighters, they don't sit there and pick their shots and, counter punch. They're in there head first, swinging for the hills. And I think it's a bit like the Mexican. It's just a culture thing. With the Americans have got some tremendous fighters, but a lot of them try to be Floyd Mayweather, where they think they can steal a living out the game. And that's it's cost them.
But you know what? Even a guy like Mayweather, I mean, we like to criticize him about he would run or whatever, but he was still. I mean, you don't get to his level by being a pansy. I mean, remember when he fought Carlos Hernandez and he broke both his hands and he kept on going.
Mayweather's tough. Mayweather's got a very, very good chin. You don't go 40 up. You don't go 50 up if you haven't got a good chin. He's got a very good chin, and he's very tough. Very strong in the clinch. But my problem with very strong in the clinch as well. My problem with Mayweather, all the talent in the world, but he would only give us 50% of what he had. You've only got to look at the Robert Guerrero fight, where Guerrero was there for the taking. He's got $50 million for that fight, yet he pop shotted his way to a points decision against Robert Guerrero, who was completely out on his feet. And I thought it was disgraceful. This guy, you got to put on a show for the fans, and he couldn't even do that for us. He gave us 50% of what he had on the night. This guy is a super talent. We just don't get to see the best of it. And that's my problem with Floyd.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Can I add one thing really fast before I forget when you were talking about the Mexican fighters? Do you know who's fighting today too? BDA Librado. Yori Boy Campas.
What?
He's fighting. Yeah, July 13. He hasn't retired. He's 46 against the guy from Tijuana.
What the fuck, man? It must be what he's drinking over there in the mountains wherever he's from. Remember that when he fought De La Hoya, he had a brujo that was giving him some sort of like a potion to drink.
He's an Indian from Navajo, Sonora.
Ah, there we go. Yeah. All right, must be that. That's what.
BDA, is that Teofimo Lopez Mexican, or is he from somewhere else?
He's from Honduras.
Salvador.
Salvador or Honduras?
Teofimo Lopez is from he's not from Puerto Rico?
I thought he was from Honduras.
I think he's from El Salvador.
Nobody knows where he is.
Nobody knows where he's from.
He's from El Salvador.
He's Chinese.
Family.
No, he's Chinese. He's everybody's getting. I don't know where he's from.
He sure ain't from fucking Panama. Something like that. Where is he from?
People in the chat room are saying he's from Honduras. So yeah,
Honduras. Honduras does sound about right. I know he's not from them other places you said, but I thought he was Mexican. Like I said, he fights like a Mexican, but he's a very good fighter, man.
No, he's Jewish. He's Jewish Honduran. Anyway, I wanted to say that we're talking about the Mexican style. Oh yeah, it's interesting, Librado, what you said about what Figueroa told you about some things hurt more outside of boxing than the punch itself, because as you know, all the rounds you've sparred, all the fights you've had, when you get dropped or you get buzzed, you don't really feel the pain. I mean, you just sort of like go numb, right? Like when
you don't feel anything. Yeah.
But it's when you get hit in the nose, when you get hit in the nuts, or when you break a bone in your hand or something, that's what hurts the most.
BDA, it's the after effects. You've only got to look at Brandon Rios at 26 years old. Couldn't barely string a sentence together. The man was punch drunk at 26 years old because he put his chin in the air and let people fucking hit him clean, square on. I mean, at the end of the day, you can only take so much punishment, no matter who you are. And you know, you've got to be smart in a boxing ring. You know, you've got to. It's about longevity. You know. Look at like I said, Brandon Rios, 26 years old. He was punch drunk. I mean, that is not the way to fight.
But that's interesting thing, Librado, because the way you fought is probably the way you sparred, which is to put your hands up and come forward. But you would pick a lot of shots off with your gloves. You know, if you face the palm forward, you can pick up a lot of shots. But Brandon Rios, he would just put the hands up and just take the shots.
Andrade had a lot better defense than Brandon Rios.
That's the thing. So,
well, thanks, man.
A lot better defense. I mean,
I get criticized for it, my bad defense. But you know what?
I tell you what, you look like Willie Pep compared to Brandon Rios.
Yeah.
I mean, we're actually having a very good conversation when you're talking boxing. I mean, if Brandon Rios was on here now, I mean, we'd have to have, it wouldn't even be worth having a show. So, and this is the thing, you know. Well, this is the thing. You know,
well, Stu, can I just ask? Because I wanted to ask.
It's all well and good.
I just wanted to ask Andrade something, Librado, about that, because I don't know if you listen to Teddy Atlas. He has a podcast and he had Mickey Ward on, and they were talking about Anthony Joshua essentially quitting against Andy Ruiz in his last fight. And he said that Mickey Ward said that he would never think about quitting. In fact, in another interview, he said that if he trained a guy and the guy quit on him, he would take him backstage and kick him in the balls. He said, "You never quit in boxing." So those were his standards. Those are his Mickey Ward's high standards. And but Mickey Ward, he was sexually assaulted when he was a child. So that he's most defenseless. He has to live with that the rest of his life. So it would appear to me that Mickey Ward, the reason why he's so tough is because he still has that weakness, that weak moment that he was helpless back then when he was a child. He never wants to feel that again. So that's why he would always give it everything in the ring. Like he would never.
If there's something we experience with our company, we experience happiness with a lot of people. We experience joy with a lot of people. But if there's something we experience by ourselves, it's pain and it's loneliness, or this thing going in the ring. There is nobody that could help you. There is nobody that is there. But we all deal with it differently. I was never abused. I was never. My mother loved us and protected us very well. But for some reason, I could tolerate pain a lot. Like you can put me in something painful and I can tolerate it. I don't care. I'm patient enough. So everyone tolerates it differently when he's faced with it. When Anthony Joshua was faced with it, he did not know what to do with it. He did not know how to deal with that. But he was by himself. There was nobody pushing him how to do it. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't cope with whatever he needed to do.
That's the difference. That's the difference between a fighter and a manufactured fighter.
Yeah. So Mickey Ward had experienced something that it was way terrible than whatever was happening in the ring. He could deal with it. He has something to compare it with. We say, fuck, this is nothing. This is nothing compared to what I felt then.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody can help us experience pain. We can only do it. It's a journey by ourselves. We find ourselves there. We
So
evolve, change.
My question to you is
to do it.
Right. My question to you is, and what drove you to take risks the way you did in the ring and to be willing to take one shot to give another? Like, is it just pride? Is it just something that you can't explain? Like, have you ever thought about that subsequently?
It's born in you, BDA. It's born in you.
Well, I want to hear him say.
I think it was just born in me. Yeah, you're right, because I never thought of anything. I had no anger in me. I was never abused. I was never taken advantage of. I had a very happy childhood. It would hurt, but after, and I'll just be on my bed resting. But I could deal with it.
Let's be real, BDA. You can trust me now. I've been in a lot of boxing gyms. You cannot teach people to be top fighters. You can't. They have to have it in them, and you just polish up the edges. You know, you can't teach someone to be tough. You can't teach someone to hold a shot. You know, you can't teach someone to show heart when he's in deep waters and he wants to quit. You can't teach that. You have to have that in you already. And this is the thing: real fighters are born fighters.
Look at this. Look at this. When I would fight, I would get a high on this. I would, let's say, when I was fighting Lucien, I know he hit me with his best shot, and when he hit me with his best shot, I look back at him right in the eye, and I smile, and his eyes just went big. When I was par, they would hit me with their best shot, and it was like they were hitting nothing. They don't comprehend. They don't understand why. So how come he's not going down? How come he's not shying away? How come he keeps looking at me like there's nothing?
Yeah, I've spoke to a lot of pro fighters, and they say there's nothing more disheartening than when you throw everything into a punch and he just walks through it smiling at you.
Yes.
Because it's gonna be a very long night. It's gonna be a very
They realize it like
the commentators used to say that your chin will go down with one of the greatest chins in boxing history, along with Jing Tunney. They would say that in the commentating. They would say their chin was exceptionally good.
I have a friend who's a professional. I have a friend who's a professional. He's 4-0 at the moment, super middleweight. And I speak to him a lot about boxing, and he tells me a lot of his battles are before the fight, dealing with the nerves, going to sleep every night knowing that you're going to be in a big fight, you know, losing the weight, and the fight is sort of the last thing on your mind until you get there. Is that true?
Yeah.
You know,
because somehow if you start dealing with it, you start wearing out, you start getting tired, and you find out about that very quick when you go in your 4-round fights. Maybe when you go in your 4-round fights, you start thinking about the fight too much. When you get to the fight, you feel like you already fought. You already took the fight out of you.
I think Joshua. I think that happened to Joshua, bro. I think that happened to Joshua.
Well, I have my personal opinion with Anthony Joshua. Joshua has been training the wrong way the whole time. That person has too much muscle.
That's what I've been saying. It.
You cannot supply oxygen to 260 pounds of muscle. You know,
the thing is, when you've got so much muscle like that, there's no rhythm in your punches. You can't throw your shots smoothly. They're not flowing. It's just robotic and stiff. And like you said, oxygen, muscle burns a lot of oxygen. And when you're nervous as well, because he's on his American debut, he's had all this pressure put on him. He was done before he even stepped in the ring.
Honestly. Yes. I'm just happy it happened to Andy. Andy deserves that shot so much. I'm so happy that it happened to him. But Joshua was about to get knocked out from anybody.
See, I think that's with Tyson Fury. I think this is why he can go 12 rounds at a canter because he just doesn't get nervous energy. He's so relaxed. I mean, he's actually close to being a clown, but he strolls through 12-round fights. And even when he gets hit by Deontay Wilder, he can still get up and put it on Wilder. I mean, that's the difference between him and Joshua. I think nervous energy is one of the biggest battles in boxing. And my friend said that. Going to sleep every night.
And then you get hit, and then your muscles are not getting this supply of oxygen. Then it starts taking the oxygen from your brain, and now your brain starts shutting off. Now you're doing stupid things that you don't know, you're not aware of.
See, the thing with Joshua, the thing with Anthony Joshua, he got away from what made him. He decided that it was more important to look pretty on Instagram with a shiny six-pack and big muscles. And that is no physique to fight. Every time I see a guy that's got big muscles in a boxing ring, he usually gets his ass handed to him because he's blowing after 4. And I think Anthony Joshua is the worst shape you can be, a heavyweight, especially looking like that. And I think if he doesn't shed at least 2 stone of that muscle, mate.
And now look at Andy. Andy can fight, and he has speed. Andy can walk through the desert, I don't know, 30 miles all day, and then he'll come and fight you, and he still have energy to beat you up.
Look how calm. Look how calm Andy Ruiz was that night with Joshua. He kept in shape. He kept calm. He was relaxed. He was picking his and that's he could have gone 12 rounds easily that night, but he didn't need to.
I had mentioned that too, Librado, because like I personally know this. Like it's funny that you say the desert analogy, because he literally is from the desert. He's from Mexicali, and over there you can boil an egg in the you can make a what you call it or easy in the concrete in the floor, because it's like 110. And those guys at Mexicali, they're really good amateur fighters. You know this, that they always beating up on the guys from Tijuana. Yeah. So he's got a good amateur career, and like he's fast, but the body, he's not body beautiful, so to speak. So I mean, but he only lost one time controversially, against Parker.
Yeah, I mean, you've only got to go back and watch Joe Calzaghe versus Jeff Lacey when Jeff Lacey was unbeaten. Jeff Lacey looked like Clubber Lang, and Joe Calzaghe looked like Mr. Bean. But we all know what happened that night. Muscles don't win fights.
Speaking of that, I wanted to ask Librado, because we were talking way back. And by the way, Librado, tell us when you've had enough. So we don't want to keep you here all fucking night. Although we could.
I got a few minutes. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Yeah. This is fun. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I wanted to ask you about that, because you were talking about Joshua's, that he wasn't prepared for it, either physically and possibly mentally too. That's where the sparring comes in. Now, Librado, you mentioned that you went to war all out with Gonzalez when Danny Green went into camp. With Kessler, you didn't go all out, but I'm pretty sure if you would have sparred in more days, you would have. Do you think, because there's 2 schools of thought on that. Some people they say, oh, well, you shouldn't go all out in sparring, save something for the fight. And other people say, no, sparring should be to simulate a fight, to get you ready for that type of pace and that war, and to find out what you have in your soul and whether you can live through that in an actual fight. So what do you think about that? Like, do you think your type of sparring was correct for your style? Or
now what they do is they change. Before, fighters used to spar all the time. Now they spar 2 times a week, 3 times a week, maybe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. They changed that. They only go a few rounds. They don't go a lot of rounds. Before, they used to go a lot of rounds. The thing is that now we're getting more hurt because they don't assimilate the shots like they used to, because they're not used to being under fire. And before, there was a lot more toughness that you had to go through to get into the ring. By the time you were in the ring, you were already toughed out. And now you are not used to getting hit. So when you do get hit, something very wrong goes in your head.
So the problem is with a lot of these fighters, they're doing sparring, but they've got these guys coming in, and they're telling these guys what punches to throw. It's not like a proper spar like it used to be back in the day. These sparring partners are paid to throw certain shots and get punched up, basically, and that's not teaching these young guys anything. That's just teaching them to beat up on someone. And like I said, once you start throwing your shots, and then these guys start walking through your shots and bringing it back, that's when you find out who the real fighters are. But this new age of sparring, and I think what it is as well, because there's so much money on the line with some of these fights, they can't afford for people. Yeah,
so what they're finding out in fights in national TV, they should be finding out in closed doors in the gym. And then,
exactly, and this is why a lot of these fighters are getting exposed, because they've had easy rides. And as soon as they're in there with a lion, they don't know how to react because they've never been there before. And this is the thing with the Mexicans. A lot of these young Mexicans, all right, they've had losses here and there. Like Marquez lost his first fight, but they learn from these losses, you know. And the time,
just for example, Castillo. What's his name?
Jose Luis Castillo.
The guy. Jose Luis Castillo. He was the sparring partner for Julio Cesar Chavez for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And look how tough he was. And
Julio
Cesar Chavez used to spar with him every single day. Every single day they used to use him.
Yeah, but back then it was proper sparring, bro. They were going in there and doing proper sparring. These days, these kids are being told what to do. You know, don't throw too hard, don't hurt him. You know,
if you do throw too hard, they send them home. Yes,
exactly. I know people that have been sent home from sparring for throwing body shots too hard.
That's the British. That's the British
can I
way.
add something?
Yes, Gonzalo, please.
Yes, I was just gonna, before I lose my train of thought, because you guys are talking about it, and two things I pick up, like going into the fight next Saturday. Like we had Soto Caras on the show, and he said, and there's a belief that he hit Keith Thurman with a shot, and Caras verified. He said, yeah, he threw an overhand that hurt him. And like you say, fighters can't take a punch very well because they trade differently. I think Thurman, even like it's out there that he was training for the Josecito Lopez, but he was like going and doing some work in the LA Fitness instead of the gym. And we saw what happened with him when he got hit by Josecito. You know, it's like, okay, so I said two things. Maybe Thurman, he can't assimilate a punch really good, like you're saying. And also, like you said, to fight a fighter that moves around, and we talked about it here too, it's very hard to knock out. But what do you think? If Keith Thurman goes on the back foot and tries to avoid Pacquiao, can he get away from him? Because even though, I mean, Keith Thurman's a good fighter, but if he moves, is it that hard to knock out a guy that isn't there to fight toe-to-toe?
Right.
That's one. And the other, if he does catch him, is he chinny because of the lack of the sparring?
Librado, what do you think?
Could be. We don't know until we see the fight, but the poison for Manny Pacquiao is to give that angle like Marquez did and let him run into the shot, or else he doesn't get hurt. Because he could take
you know what's interesting? You seen Thurman how he shuffles back? He'll do that where he like steps back like 2 steps, then he throws that overhand right. It's a beautiful shot Thurman can throw. He kind of does it like Mayweather, but he steps back and he throws that counter like a rifle over the top. I like that shot.
Yeah, but watch what happens when he gets caught with a big shot. He just his shape goes. He loses he loses form. His fucking head goes down. He starts swinging, and he's a KO waiting to happen. I mean, Keith Thurman goes to pieces when he gets hurt, and that's the problem. You know, I don't know. Pacquiao's not the guy he used to be, and he's not really knocking out anyone recently. So I think this fight's going to be a 12-round decision. I'm just not sure which way at the moment.
I agree with you. I don't think Pacquiao has the power anymore. He has the quickness, but he doesn't seem to have the power as he used to before, like that one punch power that will put him to sleep or hurt him. Exactly. And Thurman has to find that right angle, and it's kind of very difficult if he's not in his A game against Pacquiao because he's so fast all over the place.
Yeah.
By the way,
have you noticed though when that Thurman loses his shape and his form when he gets hurt? You know, he puts his head down, doesn't he? He just starts swinging. And I think with Pacquiao, I think with Pacquiao. But I always say, even if you've got a weak chin, because a lot of people think Thurman's quite weak around the chin, there's always a way to win. I mean, you've only got to look how Junior Jones magnificently pulled it off against Barrera twice. I mean, Junior Jones had one of the worst chins I've ever seen in a boxing ring. Yet this guy avoided Marco Antonio Barrera for 24 rounds and got the 2 wins. So there's always a way. You know, you've just got to have the skill. I just think with Thurman, I don't know. I don't think Thurman's. He's not very good on the back foot. He just circles with his guard up, and you know, Josito Lopez was getting to him, and you know, easily. So I just think with Thurman, I mean, I'm not sure if this guy. I'm not sure how many fights this guy's
The
got.
next one that I see from Thurman is like, this time he's talking too much, more than usual. I don't know if he's just trying to sell the fight and kind of disguise it. Or...
I think deep down he knows that Pacquiao's probably not going to stop him. You know, when you're not going to get, when you know you're not in. I mean, it's talk the big talk when you're in there with Wilder, then I'll respect you. But you know, when you're in there with Pacquiao, who hasn't knocked out anybody recently, I mean, that's probably what it is. I mean, put him in there, put Thurman in there with Errol Spence, and I'm sure he'll go quiet again.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think Errol Spence is going to be one of the best ones, and of course, Wilder is going to be one exciting one to watch because of his weird style.
You know, it's interesting.
Us at the BDA, we've all, well, most of us have got Tyson Fury winning that rematch against Wilder.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you guys are talking about Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is another guy that's cut from a different cloth because, he was blessed with hand speed and power. But how many guys have we seen in boxing who have hand speed and power and they just don't let their hands go? Or they quit, or they don't train hard. You know, it's this guy, he's one of the all-time greats because he has that tough mentality. And we're talking about Mexican style. Yeah, Mexicans, you know, that's in our culture. But Philippines, though, lately, you know, it's a third world country too, just like Mexico. And because of especially since the Manny Pacquiao days, they've been producing a lot of contenders and title holders. So it's a mentality, like you guys were saying. It's taking a punch. And we don't know if Keith Thurman, I mean, he's tough, man. Don't get me wrong. He's very tough. He went to war with Porter. The Garcia fight wasn't really a war, but it was still a tough fight. So he's tough himself. But we have to wait and see if he can take the punch and if he can deal with Pacquiao. Because Pacquiao, 40 years old, he's still quite quick. Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask
Librado. Sorry, bro. Quickly, the thing with Pacquiao, he lost fights that he could have won if he got behind his boxing. He went to war when he didn't have no business doing it, and with some of the best in the business like Barrera and Morales and Marquez and people like that, you know, and he could have boxed these guys and probably got the win. But this is the thing, you know, some fighters want to put it all on the line and be fan friendly, and some want to stink the joint out, and you know, and that's why Manny Pacquiao's a legend, and certain fighters that are good not even talked about because they're not putting it on for the fans. That's what it's about.
Yeah, well, you know what? They're not willing to take that risk. Yeah,
that's the thing about risks, Librado. I wanted to ask you, when it came to street fights, prior to boxing or during, did you ever get into that a lot? Like, did you ever get into a lot of altercations outside? No,
never. One time I got in a fight with this kid and junior high, and that was it. He kind of pushed me and we started fist fighting, and I kind of knocked him out real fast, and that was it. Nobody wanted to fight me ever then, but I never wanted to. I always gave him his respect, and that was it. That was all I had as a fight as a kid, but I was terrified of fighting.
It's interesting though, because
I already knew how to fight then, so it wasn't fair.
Okay. So you beat up on that. How old was he? Was he like 5 years old and you were 13, or?
I was 13. No, we were 13 both.
Okay. No, because the reason why I asked that is because you remember Brock Lesnar, right? Like, you know who Brock Lesnar is? He's the big dude.
I think so.
He's the big UFC. He was a wrestler for the WWF, big dude, and then he transitioned to. Yeah, okay. I don't know if you remember what he was huge, like 6'3" or more maybe, and 70 pounds. And he would wrestle people in the UFC. He would take them down and just pound them. But when he would take a shot, like he fought a guy once and he took one shot and he turned his back. He actually almost turned his back, and then he got lucky and he dropped the guy with a tackle. And then he just beat the shit out of him. But I remember when I watched that fight, I said, wait a minute, can this guy take a punch? And then he fought Cain Velasquez. and Cain Velasquez just opened up on him with combinations, and the guy now he really turned his back on Velasquez. Like he would turn his back every time he would take a shot. Now, and I remember thinking, well, hold on. I just want to say that the guy was a big dude. He had a big neck. Physically, he could take a punch. Physically, he could take it, but mentally, he was. What I think happened was he was so big throughout his high school days, college days. Nobody ever picked a fight with him. Like you'd have to be crazy to fight him, and I think that's why he never learned mentally to take a punch because that's why.
Well, the thing is that he's a steroid.
Well, hold on.
He's a steroid user.
All right, but hold on. I just want to hear what Librado has to say about that.
I found that very, very strange. And not strange, but I think it's the most difficult thing for anybody when they want to learn how to fight to get used to. I train people 2 times a week in a class, and when I have some drills where they get shots thrown at them, they freak out. They cannot get used to it. And I've seen people that they've been coming here for 2 years, 3 years, and they still can't get used to it. So it's a very difficult thing to do, is to get used to having something coming at your face that's going to hit you and without you flinching or without you. So fighters do develop a very special nerve of getting hit in the face.
I mean, for me, fighters, to be a fighter, I think you have to be a bit gone in the head, because it's just a horrible. I mean, the money's good, but it's a horrible lifestyle and a horrible way to put your body through. It's a horrible thing to put your body through. It is. I mean, getting punched in the face is not nice.
It's like if I ask you, okay, stand here. Here comes a shot right at your face. Move slightly to your left or right or wherever it is, and instead of closing your eyes, open your eyes. It's almost basically impossible.
My mate who's a fighter, he was telling me this story where he said, you know the guys that want it and who don't, because people would come in the gym, say they want to be a boxer, they'd do a bit of warm-ups, get in the sparring, take one body shot and they're out of there. Well, he was saying one day, this kid come in and he said he wanted to fight, and we was like, yeah, we've heard this all before. And he said, we're sparring. He goes, I hit this guy with a shot. Didn't mean to. He goes, I broke this guy's nose in three places, right? Splattered his nose, right? Stopped the fight. He went to the hospital, got his nose fixed, come back a few weeks later, ready to go again. And that's bred in you, man. Because usually when someone breaks your nose, you're not going to go back there for some more, are you? But this guy, he wanted it. And that's the true fight. It's like I said,
That's what I personally noticed Canelo doing, like you were saying, Librado. Instead of closing your eyes, opening your eyes. And I think he stares at the floor to watch the foot or the shoulder go, but he's looking at his peripheral when the shot's coming. Okay, but he's keeping his eyes open, but he's not keeping his eyes open to expect the other guy to throw a punch. He's keeping his eyes open to see where he's gonna place his punch after the guy throws his shot for the counter.
Yep, and that's very difficult to do. And Canelo does it very well, especially when you go to the body with him and he counters you with that uppercut. He just comes down, he puts his knees, and he looked up right at your chin, and he just comes up with that uppercut, and he does that very well. Yeah.
And Librado, you mentioned that. Just one.
Alvarez. Reason why he's so hard to beat, because he's so talented. You have to stop this guy to beat him, especially with the fight.
He's so aware of what's next. He's so aware of his surroundings.
Yeah, what's next, exactly.
The thing is, even when you find a way to hit him, he's got one of the best chins in boxing. I mean, I've never seen the kid hurt. Never seen the kid hurt, and he's been hit by the best. Let me tell you that now. I mean, this guy is a very, very hard guy to beat, and he's getting better and better. But I don't want to see him go up to 175. I think that's a bit too far for him, and I think he could get found out there. I think he beats most people at 160, 168, but I think 175 is a bit too far for him.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Librado, I wanted to ask you. You said you hold the mitts for people and you do drills and all that. Is this like for people that want to be boxers, or it's like an aerobic class, group class?
For both. I go to MMA, Uprising MMA here in Las Vegas. It's a family environment type of gym, and there's some kids there that they do amateur MMA, and I help them with their hands. And not to brag or anything, but they have very good hands.
That's a good.
It's a little, you know.
The reason why I wanted to ask you that, well, hold on, Stu,
UFC
I just want, Stu, I want to get a question.
UFC fighters got terrible
Stu,
hands.
can you hear me? No, we got a delay here. Yeah, I just wanted to.
Delay, yeah.
We got a delay here.
So
Sorry about
I feel very proud. Sometimes they give me compliments and they say, "Librado, working with the hands, it's a lot better." And of course, all the knockouts in UFC, all the spectacular shots, they're because they have good hands. The good fighters that have good boxing. And so I work with them a little bit, and not all the time, 2 times a week type of thing. But I noticed that the most difficult thing for them to see is keeping those eyes open and feeling that shot coming towards them and moving slightly. They don't have to move a lot. They don't have to do all this movement, all this weight type of thing. It only takes an inch. The hand is coming so fast that it just takes an inch to beat the rail, you know?
Yeah. And if you move, like if the punch is coming and you move slightly, when the punch comes, it's not gonna land because you moved a little bit. So the guy can't redirect his hand again. The guy that threw his hand can't redirect it. It's already gone. So if you move in that trajectory, he can deviate like a missile guided to punch. The punch is gonna miss. So if you're confident and if you agree with me, Librado, because you're a professional fighter, when he moves slightly and you have confidence in that you can get away from the punch, you can confidently deliver the shot, because even though it might miss slightly, you're there to throw your own, right?
Yep, it's exactly right. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Librado, because you were talking about that, about doing drills with people and they close their eyes or they freeze when you throw a shot at them. Have you ever seen people that you do drills with them and they learn, but then you have other people that they never get over that fear of getting punched, and then you go, okay, this person, they can never be either amateur or even forget professional.
So when that happens, it's like, okay, so we work with them. We don't pay as much attention. We just work with them as an aerobic and as a workout for them to lose weight or whatever they're targeting. And then the ones that do have that special thing, you know what? This one could be a fighter.
It's interesting.
Keep an eye on this one. This one has that, you know.
I also wanted to ask you, do you have... What's that?
Can I just get in quickly about the UFC before you change topic?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to ask Andrade what he thinks about the level of boxing in the UFC. I think it's been the most neglected art of mixed martial arts, I believe. I mean, a lot of people concentrate too much on jiu-jitsu and wrestling and grappling, and I think the boxing, I think Conor's the only one that sort of brought some sort of decent boxing skills to the game. I mean, I think they're really lacking in that department, and it's a shame because the fight starts on its feet, so you've always got a good chance if you've got good boxing skills.
Look, what's the name? Amanda Nunes is beating up some very good boxers because she has very good power and very good stand-up. This girl is just doing so well.
Clarissa Shields called her out. Apparently, Clarissa Shields has called her out. I'd like to see that.
I saw a picture with them hanging out together. I don't know. Yeah, Clarissa Shields doesn't know who to call out. Clarissa Shields is the best woman, yes, no doubt about that, and she probably is the best of all times. But she doesn't need to be calling out men and other fighters. Just do your thing, girl, and just be who you are. That's it. Everybody's gonna recognize you as who you are.
Yeah. Hey, Librado, are you going to the fight on Saturday?
Yep.
Pacquiao?
Yep. I'll be there.
Nice. Because you said you're working with the PBC and that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. So who's going to be in the undercard again for that fight? Benavides, I think. David Benavides, the super middleweight.
I think that David Benavides is one. Plant, Kilo Plant.
Yes.
And Mike Lee is the other one. Omar Figueroa against what's his name? Ugas.
Yes.
Joakis Ugas. And there's one more fight. One more fight. Lipinets against
Molina, no?
Molina, yeah.
Molina.
John Molina.
That's the thing I wanted to ask you about that, because you mentioned Figueroa also. We were talking about the mentality of a fighter. When Figueroa fought Molina, who can take you out with one shot, that overhand right is one of the most dangerous punches in boxing. Molina was taking it. I mean, not Molina. Figueroa was eating it like it's nothing. Have you spoken with, like, do you know him well, or Figueroa?
Figueroa? I'm getting to know him a lot better now lately. But yeah, he couldn't face him. He took that shot like nothing. He just came back with his own shots. He tells me that he doesn't throw his shots at full power, because sometimes when you throw your shots at full power, you get more tired. He says he can never get tired because he never throws his shots 100%. Only when he needs to, when he's in the inside, especially with uppercuts. And it's so true. It is so true. Going back to the Anthony throws his shots at full power, full percentage, you know. So of course his muscles are gonna run out of oxygen faster than somebody that is going quicker and loose.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing that many people have a hard time comprehending, and it takes a seasoned fighter to understand, that when you start letting your hands go, the power is gonna come naturally. You know, like Julio Cesar Chavez says in Spanish, but I'll translate: "Las balas perdidas existen." Like errant rounds or like loose bullets, they exist. That come out of nowhere because you're just letting the hands fly, letting the hands fly, and all of a sudden, boom, you get like a really powerful shot just by letting your hands go.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, just being loose and just generating power after you let those hands go. Yeah.
You know, Margarito was like that. He would throw 1, 2, 3, and then like a 1, 2, 3 left right uppercut to the body, and you could throw shots against him. You could be faster than him, have the faster hands, and you're throwing everything 100%, but he's taking it, and he's throwing shots at like 75, 80%, and he can do that 100 times per round. So it's you're right, Librado. And Figueroa, I think Figueroa is onto something, because you're throwing those little shots, but eventually they start getting to you. I mean, with 8-ounce gloves, 10-ounce gloves.
Ugas is a very good fighter. He's a very good Cuban fighter. I thought he won against when he fought in Carson City against Sean Porter.
Oh, you thought he won?
But I think so. I think he did enough. If they didn't count that 2 knockdowns, they were knockdowns. And I thought Ugas did very well. You could argue for a draw, but anyway, he lost. But he's not busy enough for Omar, and I think Omar is just too busy. He just keeps coming, and he can take a shot. So I think I'm giving it to, in that fight, I'm giving it to Omar.
That's interesting, because a lot of people on the internet, they're very impressed with Ugas' last performance against Sean Porter. But like you said, they're focusing on that power, on the fact. Like, if you compare Figueroa to Ugas, and you don't know about who's who, most people are gonna pick Ugas because he looks like a fucking bodybuilder in there. But Figueroa looks like he just stepped out of high school. But boy, oh boy, this guy is dangerous. You can look at it in his eyes, man.
Oh yeah. He just he gives you a shot from anywhere, any angle.
And
hey, by the way, Librado, are you still okay? Are you still okay with the time? Just like if any time you like tired, have to do something.
I am about to let you guys go.
All right. Okay. Before we let you go, one last question then. Or actually, you know what? I've talked enough. Stu, you want to say something, or Revolucion, or?
Yeah, I'll pose the last question.
Well, I don't know if it's the last question, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just got home from work. Okay, Librado, I don't know if anybody asked you this so far, but just aside from boxing, just to break it up a second, what do you like to do in your free time? What stimulates your mind?
Good question.
My passion is hiking, my friend. I love hiking. I love going long hikes. I like climbing mountains. I like feeling just the physical part and the nature part. I like feeling all of that. I like getting lost there. So hiking is my passion. I like to go anywhere hiking.
Do you feel like that? Do you feel like you're one of these guys that just get your thrills off danger? Because you know, if it's not getting punched in the face, it's hanging off a cliff. I mean, you know, this is not usual things people
No,
want
that's
to do.
not
I mean, do you think
that's not
that you're
hiking,
the
man.
sort, you think you're the sort of character that just gets your thrills off of dangerous things?
No, what I have a character of adventure, and even boxing was an adventure for me because I never knew where it was going to take me. I never knew what was going to be next, and I never saw a fight like 10 fights on the line. I just saw each fight on the road. Oh, I'm gonna go fight in Canada. Oh, I'm gonna go fight in this place. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go somewhere else, and I liked that. And when I was actually there, I was just enjoying the moment. And I could go back to each of my fights and I could remember a certain thing of that fight. And it's like a passion for me. It stays in my mind so deeply. And hiking is the same way. I go hiking and I like walking to places nobody likes to do or climbing a mountain nobody likes to climb. And I just like it.
Wow, that's really remarkable, man. You really come off as a really relaxed guy too. And
Yeah,
you're talking about
what I want.
you went to
I
fights and
really feel
things
like,
you remember
yeah.
from the fights are, oh, you know, you traveled to Canada or somewhere. You take away these little peaceful moments in the midst of a storm, in a sense. You know, I like that about you.
Yeah. Thank you. And it means a lot because that's at the end, that's all we take. You know, someday we're gonna be old like everyone, and I'll be telling stories. I remember this time. Well, I remember that time. And oh boy, I have a lot of stories. And I still keep so many friends, sparring partners, uh, even from the beginning, from 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 little cities that we used to go have fights as an amateur and stuff like that. They remember, and just sitting there and remembering that stuff, it's beautiful to me.
It's a great way of like stimulating the mind because
Yeah,
boxing is a very stressful sport. You know, no matter what level you're at, it's a very stressful life, and it takes a lot on you. And you have to find ways out the sport to enjoy yourself. You know, and it's
yeah.
good for the mind. You know,
I was just very fortunate that I made a career out of boxing. I made a very I got very far. I believe that I got to the point where a lot of people don't make it there, you know, and a lot of people try. And I was just very fortunate that I did.
like I said, I'm from the UK and I know who you are. But like I said, there's a few boxers from the UK that I know that I talk to a lot of fighters, and a lot of them when they quit, when they stop fighting, they go off the rails. They start trying to look for their buzz elsewhere, and usually with drugs, drink, and partying and that. Like
Yeah.
so it's a the thing with boxing. It's not just in the boxing ring. It's having to deal with it when you retire because it's like a buzz, adrenaline rush that you'll never replace, isn't it?
And you know, and I found that the more I talk with fighters and the more I've seen fighters after, it's really hard to let go. It's a very hard thing to let go. We don't know how to do anything else but to fight. So when it's time to let go, we don't know how to go back to a regular job. We don't know how to deal with you don't know me, or we don't know how to deal with dealing with people and they're telling us what to do. And we have to go back to that.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
hard.
sometimes fighters take a little bit longer because of that.
Well, like you said before, nothing gives you the high of combat. And you know what? One of my favorite moments from your career is, like I said, that Vitaly Tsipsko fight in Montreal. Because again, the fans here, they're very loyal and they appreciate boxing. At the end of that fight, when you were beating him for 12 rounds and you still tried to knock him out, and he had heart and he stood there and he started trading with you those last 10 seconds. The people there gave you a standing ovation. They gave both of you a standing ovation. Like they stood up and they clapped, and like you made thousands of people stand up and clap for you. I mean, that's something you can't recreate unless you're a musician or, you know what I mean. So that's one of those memories that nobody can take away from you.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's also, I think,
No, after you finish saying what you're saying, no, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Also, just I watch your fights, live. I just happened to be doing something, and I was like younger, and then I see the TV. Then it's like I'm impressed. I've always been a fan, but now for you to we meet, online, and you do the show, and I talk to you. It's like it's a pleasure for me, and I feel really good and nice that you're here. And thank you a lot.
I appreciate that.
Muchas gracias.
I have been very fortunate in my career knowing people like you guys, having chats with you guys, and one person that saved me from my career and everything, which is Al Heyman. Al Heyman, Sylvia Brown, who they work for PBC and stuff like that. They brought me in, took me as their family, and I am very grateful, and I am very fortunate to have such a beautiful life because of them.
Well,
I'm very thankful to them.
Wow. You're gonna set my co-host off, King Bucho, who just dropped in the hangout. He has a couple of things to say about the PBC. Butch, are you fuming right now, or are you okay, man?
No, I'm okay, man. I'm listening.
No, not. There's not much really known about Al Heyman. So, I mean, you were very close to him, obviously. So, what you have to say is, I think, holds more credence than any rumors that anybody might hear.
That's interesting insight, because everybody says thank Al Heyman, and Librado expressed it in a way that's like heartfelt.
Yeah,
now they say, and after every fight, I like to thank Al Heyman, but Librado is really giving us some insight on the man.
Yeah, but I think Heyman tried to do what Dana White did at the UFC, and I think it hurt boxing. You can't keep fighters in house too long. You get recycled fights, and it just becomes tedious. And let's be real, Al Heyman has got some very good talent on his books, and he's holding them back. Tank Davis, where's Tank Davis been recently?
Librado, you wanna?
It's not.
I think he's tired now.
I'm gonna share my thought about that.
Please.
The problem is not in him. The system is. The problem is not the system. The problem is us fighters. Sometimes we're not educated. Sometimes we are not ready to have the kind of success that is then given to us. And like with all things, we become very irresponsible with what we have. And it happens to everyone. It doesn't have to necessarily have to be, because we are human. So when a fighter is giving all this power, all this money, all this fame, they don't know how to do to it, and they act stupid. And it's not a problem without him, and it's not a problem with his system. The problem is us not being educated the proper way to deal with the fame and then it falls down into Al Heyman, but he was never the problem in the first place.
Did you hear the story about the Charlo brothers, who got their purse, 150 grand purse for a fight, went to a nightclub and got robbed by some females because they had it in a bag in a nightclub? I mean, that's the sort of thing we're dealing with. But I've heard actually Al Heyman has started to take a lot of control of his fighters. I don't know if you would be able to confirm this, where he deals with a lot of their finances, tells them what they can spend and what they can buy. Is that true?
I don't think it's true. I'll let you be who you are, and it all falls down to who you really are.
So you're saying
sometimes we come from a background that is not the best one, and you know what? When we're full of needs, full of wanting to impress, wanting to show off who we really are by what we have. It's not Al Heyman. It's us that we are empty.
So wait a minute. I gotta ask you, because Stu brought up the point about the PBC. Oftentimes they stall fights instead of making them right now. They keep recycling certain fights. Are you saying that's not Al Heyman? That's the fighters? Are you like? Is it because they're asking for too much money? Or
At the end, I'll ask the fighters who they want to fight, and they agree, and they can agree or disagree. It's not nobody's forcing them to fight whatever fight. At the end, is that if one of the fighters look, Paulie Malignaggi, he went out of the line and said, I want to fight in the bare knuckle. Things were done. Okay, this is what you want to do. Do it.
Yeah,
And he did it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, does it make you angry that you never got them opportunities where you could pick your fighters and learn your craft without being stuck in the deep end against these lions that are coming through, sort of thing? Does that bother you at times?
It does if I think about it, but I learned to live with it, and I learned to accept what was my time. My time as a fighter is over. My time as a fighter was whatever it was then. And we can say as much as we want, if I was fighting now, if I was young and I was fighting now, even if I lost, even if I didn't, I came to fight. I would give a show just for the people to see me fight. But my time is not here. And that's all I can say. My time came in and left.
Here's the big question. Are we going to see you in the next pay-per-view bare knuckle fight?
No. It takes a special someone to be in the bare knuckle fight. but
I actually think Paulie. I think actually Paulie is such a narcissist. He actually believed he could pull this off.
Yeah.
He actually believed he could pull this off, pop shot his way to a points win with his fucking candy floss hands, and get away with it. This guy on, man. That's the narcissism of Paulie Malignaggi.
Librado is laughing because he knows it's true. All right. So that's the best.
So funny.
I think that's the best.
This guy actually fooled me. I thought I was going to see Paulie Malignaggi splitting eyes open and breaking jaws, but I saw butterflies and all sorts of things, but nothing but power. I mean, it was ridiculous. And listen, he conned me. He conned me to think that Conor McGregor was going to be a good fight. Conor McGregor would snap this guy in half. Conor would snap Paulie Malignaggi in half. I'm telling you that now.
Bought the hype.
I don't care.
You bought the hype, Stu. You bought the hype, and it's your fault.
It is what it is.
Anyway,
I like Paulie. I actually like Paulie when he's talking about boxing. I just don't like him when he's actually boxing. He's just he's horrible to watch. I mean, he really is.
All right,
listen. Really is horrible.
I don't want to.
He's got five KOs and about 40 fights. I mean, it's not my sort of fighter.
Yeah, listen, that's a good point.
This is the best.
Well, we're glad you enjoyed yourself, Librado, and we want to thank you again for having joined us. I don't want to keep you here too long because I know you said you had to go, but thank you again for being here. Thank you for giving us time to answer our questions. And you know what? We would love to have you here for round 2, man. Ask you more questions because we didn't even scratch the surface.
All right, you got it. You got it. I promise you guys. We'll have another date.
Fantastic.
Great time. Great round of applause.
That's right. Round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Totally enjoyed
Everyone, thank you so much.
Show. I mean, it's a lot easier for me when Hispanic fighters can speak good English. I mean, it helps with the conversation, and obviously it's been a very good show tonight. I really enjoyed it. And this is a guy, like I said, this is not just a guy I'm sitting here sucking up to because he's on here. This is a guy I've watched in his career. Like I said, I was up at 4 a.m. watching him beat Butte all over the place. I stayed up and watched Butte beat him in the rematch. I was watching that fight as well. So this is a guy I've always followed his career. Like I said, I watched him beat Stieglitz. I watched him fight Kessler. So it's great to have him on the show, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, my friend.
But
what was your name again?
My name's Stu Little. I'm part of the BDA crew. You'll only find me here. I'm a bit of a nomad. I don't have no territory or land. I'm just here. I come in when it's a good show.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you.
Subscribe, Librado. Subscribe to the channel every now and then when you want to listen. Just listen. It's Mr. BDA, the BDA Boxing Arena on the YouTube, and then they're gonna upload this show online. People are watching now, but then a lot of more people will see it like in the next few days.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Big hug to all of you guys, and enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You as well, sir. Have a great night.
Take care.
It was a pleasure.
Take it easy, man. All right, so that was former super middleweight contender Librado Andrade. Gave us a lot of good performances and a lot of memories in the ring. Now, before we do go, just want to remind people to watch the fights tonight that are going to be taking place on the Zone. Fox Sports 2, there's a card there. Now, Stu, I want you to stay online on the Hangouts even after we end the show, because we need to get some information from you from the Hangout so we can contact you on Hangouts if I can't log on onto Skype, because otherwise it's a big problem. I can't contact you before that. All right? And,
yeah, no problems. Yeah, because like I said, it was a bit of a nightmare tonight. I was trying to get on, and obviously because Butcho weren't in the place. I don't know where Butcho was, but I couldn't get a link for shit. Thanks to Revolution, I think it is. He's
yes, sir.
He's the one that went out of his way. Send me the link. Respect, brother. I appreciate that.
No problem, man. No problem. You're always one of the biggest contributors to the show. And I just want you to take note that you had Andrade laughing there, man. When you get worked up, it's fucking hilarious. and you had him dying when you start going off on the candy floss hands.
The thing is, though, bro. It comes from the heart. It's passion. It's not fake.
No,
it comes from the heart.
People
feel that.
Would you be insulted? Would you be insulted if I compared you to Gordon Ramsay?
No, because that's that English thing. I've been prepared. That's the wit we have. English people have got a very dry, witty sense of humour. You can either find us funny or find us offensive. There's no in between. I think that's why you see the similarities. And obviously, I mean, I could show you friends. I've got friends that are 10 times funnier than I am.
Oh, Jesus.
We're just witty people around here, and we take the piss out of each other. But the boxing thing, it comes from the heart. It's passion, and when it comes from the heart, it's real, and that's when people feel it. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's true,
Very
man.
well said. Very well said. And I also want to thank Gonzalo for having set up this interview. Gonzalo,
Yes.
a round of applause for Gonzalo as well, because he was able to...
Motherfucking 2 in a row. He got Carras. He got Andrade.
Who's next?
He's the hookup.
Can you get us Floyd Mayweather, Gonzalo?
Let's get in Roger Mayweather, man.
I could translate for Floyd Sr. I understand him pretty well.
I'm pretty sure you do. Now, I also want to remind people...
I'm there.
All right. I want to remind people, too, tomorrow is going to be the long-awaited second round of the trivia show that Revolucion and King Bucho have planned. You guys want to talk about that a little bit before we go?
Go ahead, Revolucion.
I'll just keep it short and sweet, man. It's going to be dope. It's going to be 3 grueling rounds. Johnny Boy versus Recognize. Yeah. I think we've talked a lot about it. I think everybody's heard some sample questions. It's going down. There's going to be a prize for the winner and the loser. There's going to be a custom-made championship belt style trophy. It's not a belt. The belt was too expensive. So we're going to work with like kind of a placard. It's going to be like a trophy. It's going to be dope. And somebody pretty cool is making it too. It's actually a pro wrestler who's making it that I know. And he wrestles in the death matches.
Is it a homosexual wrestler or?
Nah, I don't know about that. I don't think so.
Well, because I don't know. I'm just asking. And by the way, we didn't even scratch the surface with Librado Andrade. We wanted to ask him about Yusef Mack, but we didn't get too much time to
ask him about Bute? Apparently, I'll tell you later.
No, but Bucho,
wait, you asked him about Yusef Mack's Bute?
No, we didn't ask him about that. No, but Bucho, I know what story.
Yeah.
Fuck
me. But Bucho, I know what story you were gonna say, and I wanted to ask him, but he said something that made me doubt that the story that you heard was true. Just like I told you when I heard that story for the first time, I said that's bullshit because he says he still talks to Bute, and that they're friendly with each other. So. You should tell that person who told you that story to
Okay,
keep her
I'm not
eyes on
telling.
the prize and keep your fling on the string, Bucho. That's what I say.
All right.
All right. Now, all right. So that's tomorrow. Recognize versus Johnny Boy. Now I know Bucho and Revolucion can't make predictions because they're involved in the questions and everything. But I'm gonna make a prediction. I think Johnny Boy is going to school Recognize because although Recognize knows a shitload about boxing, right now, if I know correctly, I think he's in vacation right now in Florida, and Florida makes you soft. He's not training.
No, he came back. He's back in New York.
But okay, but is he training then?
That's
gonna be,
AJ.
that's going to be some battle. I'm going to definitely be tuning into that. I'm really looking forward to that. It depends what questions come out. I think if the old school question comes out, before, the 1800s and, the Jack Johnson days and Jack Dempsey's, I think Johnny could have this. But I think if it's a mixture of questions, and because it recognises I've got some serious knowledge himself, especially with the Latino fighters. So it depends what topic comes out. It's a tough one to call.
Yeah, I think the majority of the questions, time era wise, pretty much from mid 80s and up, pretty much everybody has had a chance to watch the fight in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Johnny's obviously gone back and watched a lot of shit from the past, but he's my age. He's like 28. So everything's pretty much like 80s, 90s up, a lot of 2000s stuff. Everything in recent memory, just about. Don't want to give away too much.
You know what are good questions, Revolucion?
What's that?
Like, for example, what was Roberto Duran's nickname? Because what was his first nickname, so to speak? Because he had a few nicknames, or like, what was Thomas Hearn's like other nickname aside from the Cobra? Because he had another one. Then he came on a show on TV,
Hitman.
and he had one. Yeah, the typewriter on Who's the Boss? The typewriter Hearns, and he had
He was called the Detroit something, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Thomas Hearns.
The Motor City Cobra.
That's why I said Detroit, because it's the Motor City. The Motor City Cobra, because he was from Detroit. That's right. I mean,
yeah. Duran was Rocky. Duran was Rocky and El Cholo. He had those nicknames. He was the original Rocky.
I remember there's a fighter in the UK. I mean, this guy's he's a bit irrelevant, really, because he fought Amir Khan and actually dropped Amir Khan. His name's Michael Gomez. But Michael Gomez, his real name was Michael Armstrong. But when he actually applied for a boxing license, there was another guy fighting called Michael Armstrong. So he actually changed his surname by default to Gomez because he was a Wilfredo Gomez.
God damn.
That's cultural appropriation right there. That's cultural appropriation, and I don't like that type of stuff over here at BDA Boxing, right?
He actually changed his whole surname, right, to Gomez because he was a big Wilfredo Gomez fan, and obviously because there was another guy with the same name as him, and that's why he was called Michael Gomez, and he actually fought Amir Khan and dropped him as well.
Ultimate Warrior did the same thing. His name is really Warrior now.
Huh. Okay, come on. Now listen.
No, I'm not lying.
Hey, BDA.
Yes, Gonzalo.
BDA.
Yes.
You can tell that Librado Andrade, he's not like you and Soto Caraz. He likes to cuss a lot. He's like more like a normal, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What I mean?
He's a real
like a good guy. He's like a good guy.
He's a baby face. And he's into. I liked him a lot. It was a really cool vibe. He likes hiking.
He's a gentleman. He's a true gentleman.
Calm, meditative kind of guy.
Yeah, he's really zen. He almost sounded a bit at certain times. He sounded like a motivational speaker or something. Like when he was talking about the outside of the ring stuff, making you stronger. Sometimes he really did sound a little bit like a what's that giant guy who does motivational? Tony Robbins. A little bit like Tony Robbins. Anyway, listen, guys, we do have to go. We'll talk about. I mean, if you guys have the chance, I don't know if I'm gonna make it tomorrow, but if you guys have the chance, or if I'm there, whatever, maybe after or before the show, the trivia game, we talk about some of the fights that happened tonight, or that happened in England. And also, I wanted to talk about, but I guess we'll do it another day. Sergey Kovalev versus Anthony Yarde. Apparently, that's been made. So
that's sign that is. I mean, I didn't really get a say quickly on the Bar Gorman fight. I had some fucking because I split with my girlfriend, so I had some new chick round. So I saw bits and bobs of it because I was trying to play it cool. I was looking at this.
Well, let's save it for.
Watching something, but it looked like Jabbar put a real pasting onto Gorman. I didn't expect that. I thought it'd be a closer fight. But that Dubai, he's a handful for anyone, isn't he? Because he's strong and he comes forward and he lets his hands go. But he obviously, technically, he's all over the place. Do you know what I mean? But he's still a young kid. No, I quite like Dubai. I weren't really a fan of his before, but I enjoyed that performance.
All right, now, so save it for the next show. Save it for the next show, because for the moment, unfortunately, we do have to go. But
Murata beat Grant's ass. That was dope.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah. We'll talk about that tomorrow too as well. So thank you again, guys, for joining us. Thank you again to Librado Andrade for coming in, and thanks again to Gonzalo for setting that up. And that's about it, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out our Twitter page. Don't forget to check out our Instagram page. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Don't forget to check out the video that I did over at BDA Live for the Thurman-Pacquiao fight. I got a couple of points there regarding Pacquiao's chin and Thurman's power, and I think I laid my argument out pretty well in about under 10 minutes. So go check that video out, and join us tomorrow for the trivia game between.
And Amir Khan is back.
And Amir Khan. That's
Amir Khan is back.
I wonder if
the Pacquiao Floyd fight's there for him now.
Come on. I wonder if him and Malignaggi, if him and Malignaggi were to rematch, I wonder who Stu would root for. That's what I'm wondering.
Amir Khan would beat the living shit out of Malignaggi.
There you go.
Me, even now.
But who would you root for, though? Who would you root for?
Well, that's like that's not that's a hard question, isn't it?
It's like choosing which. It's like choosing which.
I think I'd go for Amir Khan like I did the first fight. To be honest.
Well, there you go.
I don't like Khan, but Paulie, I mean, he's Paulie's Paulie, isn't he? Paulie.
Listen, we gotta go. Thank you guys for joining us. Good questions for Librado Andrade, and it was a very good interview, if I may say so myself. Very entertaining and enlightening. Mind into the world of a guy who always brought it in the ring, win or lose, he always brought it. So thanks again, guys, for joining us. I want to give a shout out to everybody who came in here to the panel. Revolucion was here, Stu, Gonzalo, Bucho came in for a little while, Johnny Boy as well. So thanks a lot to everybody for your contributions. Everybody in the chat room, Pound for Pound, Grievous, Hawker Mustang, Jonathan Vickland, Michael Stott, Shepherd Sons, Hawker Mustang, Revolucion was there, Ali Burton, Cachinello, Bay Area, Pete was in there as well. Shout out to Pete, Poe Johnson, 13 rounds of boxing. And Uncle Brent apostrophe, so Jason Bourne, so thanks, Fight Scout, so thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. Tomorrow's gonna be a good show for the trivia game between Recognized and Johnny Boy. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. We'll see you in the next one, folks. Take it easy. Thank you for joining us.
Every one of you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I kiss you on the mouth.
No, I'm not cool with that. I'm sorry.
One more time.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I mean, I'm dealing with degenerate animals.
I'm disappointed in everyone. Totally disappointed in everyone.
All right, come on.
Honestly, I can't do it, man.
I'm disappointed in everyone.
Let me tell you why. It's gonna be all right, Nicky. Go ahead, shoot.
You just killed a fucking man.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, because you got nothing. You don't got a thing. Yeah, because you got nothing. Got nothing.
I want to get out. I want to get out of this rat hole. I want to get online. I need
BDA Boxing.